Hello, Jay. How are you?
Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
Okay. We're just at the very boring sharing part of the program, our pre-show, as we refer.
No worries. I just always like to dial a few minutes early just to make sure.
Well, I deeply appreciate that. Not everybody does, and as you can tell, you're the only one here. And we're expecting two others. But that's please never worry about being early. That's a good thing. I'm just in what we refer to as the pre-show, because we have to, even though Facebook has no doubt some of the most talented and gifted programmers on the planet, you can't share everywhere you want to share with one click. You got to do it over and over and over. So I have to start early.
No worries. I'm gonna go on mute. If you need me, I'm here.
Hey, Jenny, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. We're just at our sharing bit right now. We'll be starting in about 3 minutes. Okay, we're just about a minute away. Hey, Heather. Just keep an eye on your mutes, everybody. You don't need to stay muted by any means. It's habit. I get all that. No need to stay that way. You get yourself caught that way sometimes. Okay.
Better.
5:01. We're going to start in 3, 2. Oh, no, I'm not. That was a preemptive count. Oh, my me. All right, let's have a go. 3, 2, 1.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man for president who's seasoned through and through, but not so doggone seasoned that he won't try something new? A man who's old enough to know
And young enough to do.
well, it's up to you, it's up to you. It's strictly up to you.
Why does Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me? Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you want a man with spirit who is not afraid to fight?
A man whose record shows that he will fight for what is right.
A loyal man who'll bring the job a fresh new point of view.
Well, it's up to you, it's up to you.
It's strictly up to you.
Cause it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me. Kennedy,
Kennedy, Kennedy, Kennedy.
And do you deny to any man the right he's guaranteed to be elected president, no matter what his creed?
It's promised in the Bill of Rights to which we must be true.
So it's up to you, it's up to you.
It's strictly up to you.
And it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me.
Kennedy, 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 Kennedy.
Do you like a man who answers straight, a man who's always fair? We'll measure him against the others, and when you compare,
You cast your vote for Kennedy and a change that's overdue.
so it's up to you, it's up to you, it's strictly up to you. Yes, it's Kennedy, 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 Kennedy for me. Kennedy, 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 Kennedy,
Welcome, welcome, welcome from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in these United States on this planet Earth, the only one we have. Third rock from the sun in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect live for October 17th, 2021. And as I say to you every single week, I am just gobsmacked at how quickly the time passes. We are already only 2 weeks from Halloween. And look at me, I'm already in a costume. Nope, it's just how I look all the time. It just happens to look like a costume. But that said, we are back with you. We are live 5:05 Eastern time here in the United States. And this week, as promised, we are going to again, and I don't say again lightly, I say again because it is that important. We are going to focus yet again on local elections. Why are we doing that? Well, for a very simple reason. There are no off years in elections, at least not here in Pennsylvania. Same for several other states across the country, including not the least of which New Jersey and Virginia. There are no off year elections. There are simply election years that happen to end in odd numbers instead of even numbers. And it is my personal point of view. I do not know that perhaps you don't agree at home, but it is my point of view that this particular odd year cycle, not an off year, but odd year cycle, is being particularly, bleh, says the radio guy, particularly overlooked. I find a very strong sense that the 2022 cycle began about 17-ish seconds after the 2020 cycle stopped. That said, it is important, and with a lack of, without being able to, groping for my words a little bit here, which is never good on radio. You shouldn't be groping for your words. I simply, having been a candidate in my life and having worked with so many other candidates, I find it just not fair that they are so overlooked. They put in all the work that everyone else does. They do all of the glad handing, the handshaking, the money raising, the publicizing of themselves, the forums, the canvassing, the events, the speeches, sometimes even ads, TV, so on and so, that they deserve they deserve attention. They deserve a voice. They deserve a place to be heard. And we all know how important a congressional election cycle can be, especially the one coming up. A third of the Senate, the entire House of Representatives up for election, and countless state races across the country, including the entire legislature here, well, the whole state house and part of the Senate here in Pennsylvania. We know how important these can be. But that said, there are elections now. The three folks who are kind enough to join us tonight are a whopping 2 weeks away from general election day. Only 2 weeks away from general election day. That's it. 2 weeks. Any pressure, anybody? 2 weeks, by the way. I just wanted to remind you in case you didn't know.
Thanks for the
2
reminder.
weeks. Don't be scared,
I
anybody.
believe
Just 2
there are
weeks. Take it
16
easy.
days.
Yeah, just 2 weeks. Don't be scared, anybody. Just 2 weeks. And they have things to say. They have policy positions. They have worked. They have raised money. They got the signs printed. They give the speech, the whole 9 yards. And they deserve as much attention as any of these, what we would generally refer to as higher profile races. I think the other thing that we need to remember, and this is documented fact, folks, you can do a simple Google machine search or DuckDuckGo if you prefer, whatever your search engine is of choice, and just elected official intimidation. Have a look. Have a look at the scores, if not hundreds, of school officials, local municipal officials, planning board folks, your sewer authority folks, and especially election officials, not just elected official, but election officials all across the country who are literally being threatened and intimidated away from their offices, to quit, to resign, some to move to other states, other municipalities, simply for doing their jobs. Someone has to fill in that vacuum. Are they going to be sane people? Or are they going to be way out on the fringe? Also, the folks that are kind enough to join us tonight are going to be in charge of your money, your tax money. That's a lot of money. And it's your money. How is it going to be spent? Do you want a fringe individual in there spending your money? Or someone you can actually talk to? Maybe not even always agree with,
Right.
but at least someone you can talk to. Or do you want the kind of people who are, as we have here in Northampton County, going to bring 12 muscly men to a meeting and force them to listen to us or physically remove them? It's happening all over the country. So these folks deserve a voice as well. We are here to give it to them. And all the while throughout the program, we will be stressing to you, I will, I imagine they will as well, be stressing to you the vital, vital importance of voting in this odd year election. And in a lot of ways, you could probably say odd year hits a lot of different levels because there's been some crazy you know what out there happening this cycle. So in a lot of ways, it is an quote unquote odd year. So we're going to give these folks a voice. Let's get to the business end of the program, wherever you might be watching across the Facebook universe. And we have about 90 shares of the program this week. Thank you to every single one of you that watches and takes in this program. If you take us in live, we thank you even more for taking time out of your Sunday evening. Perhaps it's dinner time, you're getting the kids ready for school, whatever it is you might be. Allergies, Jenna, I got it. I see it. I'm doing it too. Don't worry about it. I had nasal spray before I got on. I couldn't even breathe. Wherever you might be across the Facebook universe, thank you. And I say that in no small measure. Thank you very, very much for being with us. Really a great milestone that we hit this week. Our Facebook group That Other Side of Information hit 900 members. By no means, and I assure you, by no means does that make us the largest Facebook group. I can tell you, we're not even close. But the way Facebook operates, the more people in your group, the more people that can see it, especially once we break 1,000. So again, I'm going to ask every single member of the group, if you can invite 5 people to our group. We have 900 members. Each of you invite 5 people. That's 4,500. I'd like to think that we could break 1,000, pick about 100 people out of that 4,500. So I'm going to ask you to do that. You can watch the program wherever we have shared it and wherever it has been allowed. You can stay right there. If you want, however, to join the conversation, if you want to join the chat, and we already have a few folks in the chat, and I appreciate that very much, you can put your questions, comments, and so on in that comment section. Go to our home group page, That Other Side of Information. Our program appears as a post in the timeline. Tap on it. It will expand into the screen, and you can enter your questions and comments right there. We want you to take part in the program. We want you to be part of the program. To our sisters and brothers and friends and family at hot101.net, one of the original global internet radio outlets, we thank you for allowing us to be part of your Sunday yet again. And then maybe I shouldn't even say Sunday, because I think in Australia and New Zealand it's already Monday, and I know we have listeners in Australia and New Zealand. It's already Monday, so happy Monday to you. I'm sure you're thrilled to get back to work. We'll be doing the same thing shortly here in about 12 hours. That said, to all our listeners on hot101.net, Australia, New Zealand, dotted throughout the Western European continent, throughout Africa, South America, Central America, and Canada, we thank you all for being with us. And of course, TCP, the Cultured Professional, out of Lancaster. By the way, if you do not know how to listen to hot101.net, you're really missing it. Lot of great music going on. In fact, there was a program going on right now. I think they ran into our time a little bit, so we'll be in there pretty shortly. There's a weird crossover thing happening here. I can't seem to get my software working, but we'll be all right. We'll be with hot101.net shortly. If you don't know how to listen to it, folks, on Facebook, the main web address is the name of the station. It's hot101.net. You can also get an app at the Apple App Store if you have an Apple device. If you have an Android device, the Google Play Store, or the TuneIn Radio app, which works on any device. And you can also tell Alexa to play hot101.net. I like to say that a little louder into the mic because I like to see if I can trigger the Alexas off in other rooms and make them change. And of course, TCP, I mentioned. We will open up the phone line later in the program, and you will be able to talk to our guests tonight. But I have taken already the first 15 minutes of the program. So let's get to our guests. We have 3 guests tonight. Rather than me take you through all the introductions, I will allow them to introduce themselves. I'm going to go, believe it or not, just alphabetically, and let them tell you who they are. It also means that I don't run the risk of mispronouncing anything, which is really rude of me. Even though I have practiced, sometimes even the so-called pro gets a little nervous and he butchers up some names, and that's rude. So I'm not going to do that. So I will let them introduce themselves. We have 3 local candidates. And let me just add this too. If you're in Australia or New Zealand, or if you're in Nebraska or Washington State or Idaho or New Mexico or wherever you might be, and you might think to yourself, why do 3 local candidates in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania mean anything to me? I assure you, folks, I have said this on many, many programs with you. I assure you, I absolutely 100% assure you that at least some, maybe not all, because we are geographically different in a very large and geographically diverse country. But I guarantee you that a lot of the issues that we're going to discuss tonight are relevant to you. They're happening in your own backyard. You all have schools. You all have municipal governments. You all have budgets. You all have property taxes. So even though the individual municipalities that we're discussing might not be exactly like your own, the issues are the same. How are my tax dollars spent? How is it to be a candidate? Why is this odd year election cycle? And again, it's true on so many levels. Why is this odd year election cycle so important? So let's get to it. Let's start with you, Gina. Gina, tell us, just introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and how you got here.
Okay, so first, thank you for having me on this podcast. It's really a great opportunity to be able to speak to so many people and that I wouldn't normally be able to reach on my own. My name is Gina Longo. I'm running for city council in the city of Williamsport in Lycoming County. I'm a local attorney. I've been practicing for 16 years. I founded my own practice. It's a general practice and I advocate on behalf of everyday people. I have some prior experience working as an attorney for the DEP. So I was able to navigate through complex environmental policies and regulations. I worked with local municipalities, state agencies, that kind of thing. Before that, I was an assistant public defender for the county for many years. And then just prior to that, I was an attorney advisor for the Small Business Administration, where I assisted borrowers with, well, not borrowers, but I'm a little nervous because I've never been on a podcast before.
Why? We're just
because
having a chat. We're just having a chat. No
Right, but
problem.
I'm a Generation Xer, right? So I'm not as bad as a boomer, so I can figure out how to get on Zoom. But then when I'm on here, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many people watching me, right? So then I get nervous because I can't see them. But no, back to the SBA. I was an attorney advisor. I assisted businesses that were negatively impacted with from Hurricane Katrina. I was recently elected to the executive committee of the Lycoming Law Association. I'm a mental health review officer and I do pro bono work. So that's my background. The way I got started running, I don't know how much time I have. So at any time, if I'm talking too much, if that happens, just
If you get
wave.
dirty looks from the other guests, then that might be a good.
Yeah, definitely wave. It started out.
And don't forget, we have hours to fill in. Don't worry. You're going to get to everything.
So yeah, it was in the middle of winter and I was plowing the sidewalk and I noticed that there was a lot of snow and I thought, great, that, that's not going to get plowed anytime soon. And it didn't get plowed for several days. And I thought, somebody should do something about that. And then after the snow was gone, consequently, it didn't get plowed for like 3 days. I noticed that the roads were so bad, and I said to myself, somebody should do something about this. And I started paying attention because when we had the pandemic, I really, was homebound, and all of the city council meetings are online, so I can watch them. And I watched them since 2018, and then I really got passionate about it. And so that's the Cliff Notes version of what inspired me to run. Yeah, so I'm not sure.
You got it.
I don't know
You
if you
got
want
it,
to hear any more stories, but
We got hours to get through stories, and we will get through stories. We'll move alphabetically. Let's move to Heather. Heather, please feel free to introduce yourself. Tell folks what you're running for. Who are you, and how did you get here?
Hi, I'm Heather McCone. I am currently running as a write-in candidate for Scranton City Council. I was on the primary ballot for the same position and had a narrow loss and just wasn't ready to throw in the towel. I had a really short campaign after a very good friend was, searching for people who would want to run and, make a difference in the city by being on city council. And I took up the charge very late in the game and, met so many amazing people who supported me along the way and taught me lots of things in the couple of months that I had before the primary election. And, so I'm actually running with a running mate who had always intended to run in the general election as an independent. So we kind of are teamed up together and kind of doing a joint effort, even though we're individual candidates, because we feel like we align, well with each other more so maybe than the other people that are actually on the ballot. this time around. So that's what we are doing. I'm originally an Iowa native, but I've been in Pennsylvania since 2010. I did previously live actually in Williamsport for 6 years. I am a nurse midwife, and union leader, and I guess organizer, because we started our own union last fall and ratified our first contract in April. So you know, a lot of work with unions in this area, and having growing interest in that and other progressive organizations. I also teach part-time at the medical school. I've always taught in some capacity in medicine, from, you know, LPN nursing to up to and including, you know, medical students right now. I am a mom and, you know, just a community member. And I just feel that, you know, the government of anything, including a city, should be representative of its members. And we have a really homogenous city council right now. There is one female currently on council, but everyone else is a white male, and it's not really representative. And I feel like you know, I care for, as a nurse midwife, all kinds of different families in the city, you know, all socioeconomic classes, all, you know, races, all religions, all sexual orientations, you know, and I feel like, you know, I hear their voices, and I don't know that everyone does. You know, largely Scranton politics seem to be and have been, you know, people that are from here, not welcoming to outsiders, think that once they've gotten their position, they'll never unget it unless they decide they want to move on to something else. And, you know, just, that's not my opinion. I feel like, you know, government is for the people. And, you know, that a lot of people came out and supported me in the primary election as a complete unknown, really. I decided to run March 1st for the May 18th election, and, you know, managed only a 3% loss behind, you know, 2 incumbents and a really well-known other candidate who was a previous school board superintendent, or school superintendent. So I was really proud of that, and thankful, you know, for the opportunity and all the awesome people that I got to meet. And I just want to keep it going.
Thanks, Heather. Jay, please feel free to introduce yourself. You've been patient. Jay was here first, so you got to watch me do all the fun. It's not fun. Who am I kidding? It's boring as sin watching me share the program all over Facebook. So he got to watch all the fun sharing part. But Jay, you're up. Please feel free to introduce yourself and tell folks, who is Jay? What are you running for? How are you, sir? Welcome to the program. And who are you and how did you get here?
Thank you, Jeff, for letting me be on the program. First of all, I love your voice. Just the 15 minutes were absolutely wonderful. So don't apologize for that at all.
Look at that. And who says folks that run for school board aren't politicians? Because that was pretty politician-y, Jay. I got to tell you.
That was one label I was hoping to avoid, but I got slapped with it immediately.
So, and let's not forget, before you get into your answer, I will let you answer, obviously. You were sent here with a pretty special recommendation. Who recommended you to come talk to me about being on the program?
Congresswoman Weil did. So
now I just need to get the Congresswoman on the program. So after you have a wonderful time here today, Jay, please tell her what a great time you had. Tell her to do the same.
I would absolutely do that, Jeff. So again, my name is Jay Rahatke. I am the guy which Jeff didn't want to pronounce the last name off. Quite honestly,
it's not that I practiced it. I really did. And I'm just, even though I do this every week for hours at a time, I do countless Zooms. I guest on other folks, you know, shows and podcasts and so on. There's nothing more rude to me than when you pronounce somebody's name. It's just rude. And I'm like, I'm going to swing and miss. I'm going to swing and miss. I'm going to swing and miss. I had myself psyched up or psyched out, maybe.
No worries, Jeff. I like to say it's an uncommon last name for a common sense candidate. So how does that work? Anyway, so I am running for a school board director position in the Parkland School District. And quite honestly, when I tell that to folks, the first question they ask me, or first comment is, you may need to get your head examined. I probably should agree with them. But then I also understand how important this position is. And if I'm not willing to put myself into this position, then how do I expect anybody else to be able to put themselves into the same situation? So as far as my background is concerned, I came to this country about 20 years ago on a work permit. And I didn't really have much. I started my life from 4 suitcases. 2 decades later, I'm a successful businessman, actually a successful executive in a company. I have volunteered. At this point, I think I'm on 8 or 9 nonprofit boards. I volunteered for American Cancer Society. I volunteered for Parkland School District many years. I'm part of their Community Advisory Council. I'm part of their Education Foundation Board. So again, from an experience perspective, I had a ton of experience volunteering. And I think the thing which made me successful, so to speak, and give me the ability to live what I call my American dream is the bedrock of my education. That's all I came to this country with. And I'm extremely passionate about it. I want to make sure that every one of our kids have that same ability to be able to pursue whatever education they want to pursue and to be able to achieve their American dream. And I know you called me that I was answering like a politician, but one of my goals, quite honestly, while I'm running for the school board, is to keep politics out of it. We have seen our school boards becoming too political. And quite honestly, that's not what they're meant for. They're meant for serving our community. They're a 100% unpaid volunteer position. And they're to serve our kids and to make sure that if you are not an expert in something, then you actually go ahead and listen to the expert. One of the very important feature of a leader is to listen, not just talk. And that's what I'm there for. So I hope that's a short and a quick introduction to just my background. I'd be happy to discuss my policy positions in future questions, Jeff.
We will get to all of that, of course. And first off, let me again, I keep saying first off because we're half hour into the show. We're gonna first off in anything, but just let me again remind you all, thank you for being here, because I know that I think one of the things about doing the program when I do it, I don't want to say I'm so clever, I'm really not, is that usually you're done with your activities for a day, even though we're at around the, there's only 2 more Sundays after this before the actual general election day. And we are deep into mail-in ballots as well. And we'll be addressing that as we go. Folks, if you have a mail-in ballot, get it back in. And I should say at this point, even with 2+ weeks, what was it, 16 days? I think Gina mentioned 16 days. I would not trust the post office at this point. I would go and drop your ballot off at an official drop box. You should not be mailing it at this point. This current postal service does not want to serve. It wants to destroy and privatize and become profitable, like properly corporate profitable, even though the post office was never meant to be profitable. It wants to be, the people running it want to destroy it. Part of that is not getting your ballot from point A to point B, no matter how short of a distance that might be, even within a municipality. At the 2-week mark, I would no longer trust the post office to get that ballot if you drop it in the mail. Please go to a drop box. Now, each of our guests mentioned this in their introduction, but I want to go around one more time and ask yet again. And if I didn't ask it exceptionally clearly, let me fix that mistake right now. Gina, why do this? Why do it? Not just what for, what you stand for, but why do it at all?
Right. So I want to piggyback off of something that Jay said earlier. When I tell people I'm running for city council, especially having my own practice, I'm extremely busy. People ask me, why are you doing that? That's not a change of career. Well, the truth is I'm a homeowner. I pay taxes and I have a small business in downtown Williamsport. This is my home. My family's here. I have a vested interest in the city's success. And the reality is, for the last decade, I'm not 100% happy with the way things have been going. And it's a very scary thing running against incumbents, right? Because they've been here so long, everyone knows their name. And I think that, unfortunately, like you said, there's not a lot of, excitement for these odd year elections. And I don't necessarily know that we deserve to have their attention or we're entitled to everyone's enthusiasm. I think that's our job, is to try to get people to get excited about it, that having maybe a new face, new perspective might improve our quality of life, might make things better. Especially here in Williamsport, we have a crisis with our finances. And I hope that, all I can do is go out there and try to get people excited about it and kind of talk about some of our local issues. But also, my goal is always to, like Jay said, we should run together, keep politics out of it. On a national level, which is, it's good for the enthusiasm, right? When there's a presidential election. But I think that these local offices do become unnecessarily politicized. And that's unfortunate because, the national issues, or how I feel about some things that are, like I said, national, they have nothing to do with whether or not the streets get paved, whether or not snowplow removal is fast and efficient, whether or not our leaders are spending money responsibly without raising our taxes, just these little quality of life things that make the city succeed. That has nothing to do with politics. That's who is the most competent and responsible, and whatever other adjective you want to put in there. Yeah. So, and I think that's what kind of got me there. I lost sight of the question.
You are nervous. This is ridiculous.
No,
Stop with this nervousness right now. I'm going to stop you from being nervous by yelling at you ridiculously to stop being nervous. Now stop it.
Right, I'm not
We're all done.
nervous.
We're
I'm not
just
nervous.
having a chat. We're just having a conversation. Just so happens that there's folks from literally all over the globe tuning in, but don't let that pressure you. No
pressure.
problem.
No pressure.
It is 5:35 Eastern time. We're already 35 minutes into the program. You are live with the Kennedy Effect for September. Where did that come from? October. See, genius.
Now you're nervous.
It's her nervousness. I'm feeling it. It's coming through the Zoom, and I'm getting. I'm gonna have to walk away from the screen soon. It is October 17th, especially at the beginning of the program when I talked about how fast the year is moving, and then I just moved it back a month. Don't pay attention to the host. He's only the host and presenter. What does he know? 17th of October, 2021, wherever you are on Facebook. Thank you for being there. We've shared the program to about 90 different places this week. Our weekly reach is in the thousands, tens of thousands, to be honest. And you can stay wherever you are and continue to watch, listen in the background if you're getting the kids ready, homework, Sunday dinner, whatever it might be. However, if you wish to join the conversation, give us your comments, your questions, questions that I absolutely will read to our guests. Please come over to our home group Facebook page called That Other Side of Information. 900 members strong now. That Other Side of Information. Our sisters and brothers at hot101.net, thank you again for allowing us into your desktops, your tablets, your laptops, your cars, your phones, and now, of course, your smart speakers. You can tell Alexa to play hot101.net. If you do not know how to listen to hot101.net, well, I just gave you one way. Tell Alexa, order Alexa, demand that she play hot101.net. The main website is hot101.net, Apple App Store, Google Play Store for Android, and the TuneIn radio app, and our friends and family at TCP, the Cultured Professional, their Roku channel, and their global internet outlet, radio outlet, WTCP. Heather, why are you doing this? Not just this crazy program. But why do this? Why take the leap into politics? Why put yourself out there and run? Why are you doing this?
I mean, I could have a lot of answers, the first of which is why the hell not? I mean, we live in the city and, you know, I feel that we need more people that are just like regular people to step up and take action and like improving their lives and the lives of those around them that they care about. And, you know, I like a good fight too. So, you know, that's part of it. But I mean, I agree totally with Gina that, you know, offices like these, and I learned so much being a part of this primary election, from city council candidacy to, you know, tax collector to judgeships to school board. I don't understand really. I mean, I'm a Democrat from birth, you know, pretty much. I'm a progressive, you know, in my ideals, but I did not at all agree with the fact that on any other party's, you know, ballot for city council, that they had no candidates, you know, because there were 5 of us running as Democrats. There are 3 seats open. And so if you're Republican, you know, if you're a third party, you didn't get a vote at all, you know, for a city council candidate. And B, if you're a Republican, there were just 0 candidates for you listed because there were no Republican opponents. So did I agree with that? No, I do not. Like, Republicans need city council representation as well. And so do independents and, you know, libertarians and any other. What's that?
Especially what's left, if there are any left of the quote unquote normal ones. Yeah.
Right. Like you know, so I did not agree with that. And I did, you know, without really understanding that fully maybe, or trying to reach those voters, did get, you know, a number of Republican write-in votes, even in the primary. And it really got me thinking, like, what I want to do is represent the people that live in the city. I don't care what their party affiliation is. You know, I don't care anything about them. They all deserve equal representation, and that's what local government should be about. So for school board here, at least, it's a little different. Like you can run sort of on both tickets, but it still takes out those that are, you know, not part of, you know, the bipartisan, you know, setup in the primary. So you know, I met and got to know a lot of the wonderful like school board candidates that we have here, and you know that their setup is, like I said, a little bit different. But city council, if you weren't a Democrat, you just didn't get a vote. So that, you know, that's just something.
It's a democracy issue for you.
Yeah.
Small d democracy issue for you. Jay, you did mention it again in your introduction, but I just want to try to emphasize on it again, if we could, please.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good question. And I think one of the reasons I gave in my introduction was that I'm really passionate about it. But I think last few years have taught us a few things. You know, they have been absolutely crazy for our education of our kids, right? And I have 2. I have 2 in the Parkland School District. They're both in the high school now. But you know, I have seen the effect of the pandemic on the mental health of these kids, right? I mean, it's a pandemic within a pandemic. It's of its own. So I want to make sure we can do something about it. Again, in these turbulent times, we sort of need school board directors that we can trust. I mean, people who just have the experience, who have sort of managed multiple challenges at the same time. They have the ability to pivot. If something is not working, they have the ability to pivot, to make something work. They have the ability to listen to experts. You know, if you are not an expert yourself, I mean, reading a Facebook post or reading even 15 minutes of research does not make you an expert in anything, right? I mean,
Wait. Are you sure? Because I've read, let me just tell you, I considered myself a zombie expert too, because I read it. I saw it on Facebook, I swear.
And you know what, quite honestly, Facebook does a tremendous job of alienating people, because what it does is it sort of creates this echo chamber of
it's a love-hate relationship, isn't it, Jay? Because let's be honest. Let's be very honest. This is how we connected.
That is true.
We use Facebook to connect with each other, but at the same time, there is this, you know, it is a Jekyll and Hyde story, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And again, I think, so we connected via Facebook as well, Jeff, right? So
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not, it's a medium, right? I mean, and like anything, it can be used for good and bad. Unfortunately, I think it's being used for both good and bad at the same time. But anyway, as I was saying, I think we need to be able to listen to experts. I think we need to have people who have proven themselves by serving the communities, not just that I want to be a school board director. I have proven that I have spent so much time serving this community that I can be an effective school board director. And that's what it's all about. Just making sure that you have the right people in the right position. Parkland School is already a great school district. It really is. It's ranked the best in the Lehigh Valley. We want to keep it that way. We want it to be inclusive. We want it to be. It's already diverse. So we just want to make sure that we have the right candidates who are not trying to do this for political reasons, and they're trying to do it to make sure that they are serving the community. And that's why I'm doing it.
Let me just open a question to anyone who wants to jump in. We'll there's going to be a point at somewhere. I've already done it to you guys already, but we'll talk over each other, but that'll sort itself out. It always does. You all mentioned the principle of non-partisanship here. You are all, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, Heather did say it, you're all Democrats here. So am I, since birth or before. I happen to identify with the family a tiny bit. But you mentioned representation. You mentioned, all of you, in one form or another, small d democracy. If you hold that as a principle, but this is a political show, obviously, we talk politics here, and it's not always pretty. And this odd year election cycle, not only in my mind has it been profoundly overlooked, it's being borderline violent at different places in the country. We've seen candidates for school boards and city controllers and county controllers and district attorneys and in New Jersey and Virginia, where they're electing governors, chased, harassed, threatened. So you all mentioned non-partisanship, but how do you do that when the other side would just as soon, quite literally, threaten you out of existence?
Jeff, I can maybe take a quick crack at it. So I learned when I was a kid, always take the high road. And I think it's you can actually switch a lot more people with kindness than by yelling. And I truly believe it in it, even though it sometimes is hard to do. As an immigrant, I have been called all kinds of things. I've been actually publicly asked on Facebook if I was a citizen of this country, so that because if I'm running, right, and my name is Jay or Jitesh, which is actually my birth name is Jitesh. I've been asked to go back to my own country. I've been asked many different things. I've been ridiculed of my accent. And in every situation, I have tried to respond back with kindness, because I don't know what their story is, but I know how to create my own story. And even when somebody really yelled in a parking lot of a grocery store, not too far away from my house, to go back to my own country, I literally tell the lady, "Ma'am, is there a way I can help you today?" And she had no answer to come back to me, because that was not what she was expecting. What she was expecting was some sort of a comeback at her. And I'm like, why should I do that? Why should I actually go sort of cement the stereotype she may have of people? And I don't know if I changed her mind or not, but I know she didn't yell back at me. So I honestly think if you talk to people And if you always take the high road, they can throw whatever they want at you. You just be kind and remain that way. I think you can change a lot of people's mind. I do have a lot of support from both sides of the political aisle. And that's because, again, I have shown my credentials again and again of what I have done and what I plan to do. And I think that's, to me, that's one way to answer the question. I don't know if I did a great job in doing that, but I thought
Well,
I'll give you my perspective.
it's not about a right or wrong answer. I want to know your experiences. I wouldn't have had you here if I didn't want to know your experiences. I'm a more political animal than you, and God bless you for that. I mean, the process hasn't completely jaded you quite yet. Some of us are there, sadly. Even though we continue to hold a modicum of optimism because the story that you just told us is not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. I do it all day long, 7 days a week. We haven't been out in public and having public events as much as we used to have when I first moved back to the Valley and got involved in politics here. But when you have that, I love when we throw, you're a Marxist, communist, socialist, fascist. I love that one because, hey, genius. You're not even close, yeah? But at the same time, when I'm called radical or this, that, and the other, you're right. I am radical. My goodness, I want you to be able to do radical, crazy things like eat, drink the water and not die from it or get sick from it. I want you to go into your class. I'd like you to go into a school that's not falling down around you with lead pipes and asbestos and with 45 kids in a class instead of the 15 to 18 that it should be. And I don't think your tax money should be going to pay for charter schools, by the way. That's pretty freaking radical, isn't it? So that's what I'm talking about. Your answer gives me hope, Jay. Please believe me. There's no right or wrong. But this isn't a year, and it's why I think good folks like you deserve a little bit of a medium here to say, we're running. These elections are happening, and you need to be a part of it. And oh, by the way, last time I checked, I don't need to tell you this, Jay. Don't need to tell anybody this, to be honest. Go back to your country. Not a policy position necessarily. Do you know what I mean? It's not how are you going to watch out over our schools by screaming, go back to your country. Or how you would do it as opposed to how Jay would do it by screaming something so vile. I got an accent too. I just look like everybody else, or at least a decent number of everybody else. So I don't get that crap. And I don't know what I would feel like if I did. Irish need not apply pretty much faded out in the 19 teens. So it's an important question. That's why I think it's a hopeful question, your answer, Jay. It's a hopeful answer. I wish I could be that hopeful. Sometimes it's really hard. Ladies, whoever wants to step up first, how do you maintain your optimism and your focus of bipartisanship or even non-partisanship when someone sees the D behind your name and just starts on the attack? How do you do it?
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm coming from a place of privilege as a white person, you know what I mean? So I certainly cannot relate at all to things that Jay, has gone through or anything, but, there's going to be naysayers everywhere, that I had people tell me that, those in the community were asking like, why would I be bothering with this? I'm just a mom. Like, well, not just a mom, even, I mean, I do a lot of things in this community and a very accomplished person, but even if I were just a mom, I'm, hazard to guess there is like half of our population that are just moms, in that regard. But, really, and we spoke a little bit about this, Jeff, before. The divisiveness that I've seen wasn't even really from the other side. It's from sort of the party line folks doing things like threatening my friends who are endorsed by the party for publicly supporting me in my write-in campaign, with vague, thinly, not so thinly veiled threats of taking away their endorsements or making it so they can't run. And that's not okay. First of all, we all got the opportunity in the primary to go before the Democratic committee here to give a tiny little spiel about ourselves and our campaign, and they endorsed 3 candidates for 3 positions, one of which was not me. And I mean, I'm very, very in line, I guess, with sort of Democratic with a capital D, as you would say, ideals. So why? I have no idea. One of the endorsements went to someone who was very vocally not even a Democrat, had changed parties simply to run, had very, like we discussed before, Jeff, anti-human, let alone anti-democratic ideals posted all over his social media, but he got the Democratic Party endorsement. Had I received that, I would probably be on the ballot right now, because I would have that support and backing as a virtually unknown before that. So why did that happen? We don't know. Was he a viable candidate? Not really. I mean, he only served to sort of take away 10 or so % of the vote from the other 4 of us. He has every right to run, sure, but switching parties and having anti-Muslim, LGBTQ, anti-female, pro-Trump, et cetera, all over his public social media, not even as a friend. And that was the person who got the Democratic endorsement. But then now, when I'm sort of trying to stay in the race and uphold those democratic ideals, my supporters have been threatened.
Follow the money.
Or even just sharing a post on Facebook, which is
really follow the money. I would say that, follow the money. Just gonna put that out there. Gina, how do you try to stay optimistic? How do you try to ride the, a principle, a held, an in your heart principle of non-partisanship, or at least bipartisanship, that, if you're successful, you're going to serve the entire city. When you do I know a tiny bit about the Williamsport area from Kristen. You have 2 parties up there. There's, it is a Democratic island in a sea of red. How do you try to maintain that optimism and that bipartisanship or nonpartisanship when the party opposite you would just as soon run you out of town as anything else?
Right. So I guess, I'm running for an office that impacts the life of everyday people in everyday situations. Like I said, I'm not making national policies. The problem is when I have a bipartisan committee, and I do have actually I have multi-partisan support. Optimism, I mean, I'm a female litigator, okay? So I do not stay in my lane, and it is very threatening to people, and it has been the whole time I've been doing this. But I think the reason why I want the political party, there's always going to be the folks that don't care who's qualified. They're just voting for the D or the R. And on both sides, that's unfortunate in these local offices. And I'm thinking, if I see somebody broken down in my neighborhood now, not on a major highway, because I'm not going to stop, but I might call 911 or something, but I'm not stopping. But if somebody's broken down in my neighborhood, I'm going to stop and help them. I'm not going to ask them, wait a minute, what political party are you? Do you know what I mean? And when we're running on this local level, we are running to assist our neighbors. So that's the way I look at it.
You do look at it that way, but there's a significant opposite who doesn't.
Right.
I mean, that's what I'm wondering how you negotiate that, because you can stand up at a candidate forum and speak on a certain policy that you would like to see either put into place brand new in Williamsport, or maybe something that's already working in Williamsport that you'd like to enhance or expand, or something that's not working that you want to fix. And it could be to the benefit of every single resident of the city, be they white, black, brown, old, young, male, female, Republican, Democrat, whatever. And just because it comes out of your mouth, it must be wrong. It has to be wrong. It has to be some type of conspiracy, some type of plot, or you just want to mandate this and mandate that. How this is and it's part of why I've been trying to spend so many weeks for local candidates. You guys are on the ground. You're literally in the, I shouldn't say literally, that's a bad thing. You're metaphorically in the trenches. I mean, really, we saw some of the venom and some of the just absolutely outlandish things that President Biden had to deal with while he was campaigning. He's going to be president of the United States. He's got a couple hundred people around him, including Secret Service. You don't. You have to go to the grocery store. You have to take the kids to school. You have to go to work. It's why I ask. I think it's one of the things that folks like you are dealing with all over the country. You're running for the right reasons. The overwhelming majority of people are running for the right reasons. And there's an entire opposite. There's, best polling only shows that this cultish party is only about 30% of the total numbers of self-identified Republicans alone. But they're loud and they're violent and they're out there in the streets and they're out in front of your homes, and maybe not your homes in particular, but they're out. They're scaring people right out of office. They're scaring people out of their hometowns. Thank God you have some optimism, because it's hard to stay optimistic. It's really hard to stay optimistic. To see, and I see it right here in the Saucon Valley. I would argue with you, Jay, about the finest school district in the valley. I think we got a pretty good one down here. But we, there was a candidate forum just last week, just last Thursday, I think it was, where one of the board directors standing for re-election said that the science isn't in yet on the virus. Are you nut? Are you mental? Are you honestly saying that to people, to their faces? That's absolutely, I mean, even though it didn't shock me, it shocked me. Was a grown human being say that with even a modicum of education? Anyway, Jay has, I know that you have to leave us sooner than the ladies are. So let me give you just a little more time up front. What are the big issues that are confronting the school district, the Parkland School District, and or that you hold as a top priority for you? It might not be a top priority for some others, or it might not be an issue in the district, but something else that you maybe want to bring to it. What are the big issues that everybody's talking about? What are the issues that you want to talk about?
Yeah, no, thank you, Jeff, for giving me that opportunity. I think there's the biggest issue, of course, in school right now is to how do we make sure that we can keep our kids safe and in school, right? I think that is, and quite honestly, I think with what the school districts have now done, they've done a pretty good job of keeping the number of cases manageable, and all the kids are in school. So I think that is, and again, as a parent, and I had two high school students, right, who are sort of self-sufficient. Imagine if you were a parent and you had a kindergartner or a elementary school kid, and you had to sort of be the daycare as well as the parent as well as the educator at the same time. And I know it has been extremely hard on parents. And again, I think the biggest issue which I have right now, which I want to solve for, is the mental health awareness, and I did mention that a little bit earlier. And it's not just for students. I think, it is for students and parents. We have for all of us. I mean, it's one of those topics which doesn't get discussed often. It still has some stigma attached to it. People are not willing to admit openly that they're facing a mental health crisis. Quite honestly, it's another, it's just another ailment, right? I mean, if it's, you just got to go take care of it, right? Like if you have physical pain, you take care of that. If you have mental health issues, you take care of that. And I think right now we need to do more. We need to do more within our district to be able to manage that better. I'm not saying that the district is not doing it. I mean, in fact, the Education Foundation, which I'm part of, which is the charitable arm of the school, has actually done a webinar, a great webinar called Pandemic Within the Pandemic, right? But I think having some sort of manage it directly at the student level, sort of have some counseling services, more counseling services at the student level, I think is going to help elevate some of the challenges the pandemic has created for our kids. I think those are the two big ones. Then I actually have, before pandemic was a thing, right? There were still things which needed to be managed. And to me, there's a few of them, right? The first one is the vaping and juuling crisis. It has curbed itself a little bit, partly because everybody's talking about now the pandemic, but there was a time where vaping and juuling was the in thing at schools. And my dog agrees in the background, by the way, just so that you know.
Don't worry, my cat might be here before it's over. She was having a go. She was having quite a scream from downstairs when we were starting.
He does like to agree on all inopportune moments. But other than that, right? So I think that's a big one to me. The other one, which is very interesting for me, has been cyber charter schools. And I know as a school board member, you can't really do anything specific about the cyber charter program itself, but they have been a drain on our resources, and they have not been successful, right? I mean, we know the statistics. More than 2/3 of online charter schools have a weaker academic growth than brick and mortar,
Hey, Jay, let's be honest. They have been a deliberate and designed drain on public dollars.
Absolutely.
One of the great hypocrisies, and there's a lot of them. We could do the next 6 months of shows simply on hypocrisy. But one of the, and you guys can try to stay above board nonpartisan if you want. I'm getting down into the dirt right now. One of the great hypocrisies of what used to be the Republican Party, it is now a corporation. And this shows you why it is a corporation. We hate small government, don't want to pay taxes. We don't want this, we don't want that. But you can't suck on public funds fast enough. Haven't you taken enough from us already? Because you can afford the private, the religious schools. And under this faux mirage of choice, these are for-profit schools. And if they are not legal in the legal sense, in the sense of the legislation, we know that they are. If Parkland has to send actually, Jay, you can tell me, how much money per student does the Parkland School District have to pay to a charter?
Yeah, it's about $14,000.
Okay, 14,000. 14,000. I have a tickle. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and you are so right. So this is this.
So-
in this sense, sorry, go ahead.
So it's 14,000. Just like a health insurance company or your homeowner's insurance or the bloody warranty that you keep on your house that you never get to pay, never get to take advantage of. And then when you do, suddenly they can't take your calls. Let's say that cyber charter only actually spends half of that on a student. Parkland sends 14 grand. They spend 7. What do you think they do with that other 7,000?
I mean, and quite honestly,
It's called profit.
it absolutely is, and it's beyond even that, right? It's like the 7,000 they actually spend don't lead to anything useful either, right? Again, the statistics show again and again that the academic performance of cyber charters are abysmal, to say the least. I mean,
Compared to the standard public school, yes,
compared to
absolutely,
standard public
100%.
schools. And so, if something is failing and is not giving value, right, then what's the point of keep doing this, right? I mean, isn't definition of insanity trying to do the same thing over and over again and sort of
Sure is.
expecting a different result?
That's one of them.
Yeah, one of them.
Right.
Anyway, so
The other one is being poor as dirt and continuing to vote Republican, but that's another topic. We'll get to that.
And the last one, I think, for me, as the question you asked is what else is on my agenda. I think one of the last things, again, not nearly as important as the safety and the education part, but still, I think it's a pet peeve of mine. Parkland has been, a great school for a very long time. We have an amazing alumni. We really do. And again, wouldn't it be great if we had some sort of a alumni mentorship program where, the kids who are in school now can actually learn from, other alumni who have already passed Parkland and are successful in their careers and in whatever, chosen field of choice, right? I mean, I coach science, for example, right? So I've been coaching science for our Springhouse Middle School science team for the last 6 years. We have been state champions, Pennsylvania state champions for the last 6 years. In 2018, we came number 5th in the country. And by the way, 7,000 schools participate in this program across the country. So again, if you know something, you can give it back. And again, I do it as a volunteer, but what if we can create a formal program where the Parkland alumni actually does that for us? I think it's a passion of mine. I think that we can do a tremendous amount of work, successful work, if we can make that happen. So that's just another part of my pillar. So I think I spoke already a lot. I'll give others a chance to speak, but that's my platform, really.
Well, let's broaden that out to everybody because this certainly affects everybody. I think we only think of, or not only, but we primarily think of taxes, property taxes, in relationship to schools. Taxes are the fees that we pay to live in a civilized society. There's a lot of talk about, it always seems to crop up around an election time. If I find it odd how the party that seems to chew on this piece of fat an awful lot never seems to do much about it, about eliminating property taxes as a school funding, except that the replacement, all the replacement proposals that I have seen disproportionately and sometimes massively disproportionately affect those on the lowest of the income brackets. There's also a fair funding formula in Pennsylvania, Jay, as you're well aware. It is really not that, which is usually a nice, wonderful trick that Republicans like to play. We call it the Save Democracy Act while we take voting away from everybody, that kind of thing. Property taxes are used as the funding source for schools as a way to keep districts unequal. Let's just be blunt. Wealthy, white, suburban districts want to keep all their money home. They certainly don't want it sent somewhere outside, or more specifically, and more sadly even, they don't want them sent to districts of color. How do you balance that at a place like Parkland, who's very proud of its district and wants its money kept home? And we don't really have a fair funding formula in PA. That fair funding formula only takes in the dollars since the Fair Funding Formula Act was passed. All the old dollars get to stay home. Isn't it a bit easier for some place like Parkland or some place like the Saucon Valley with high tax bases, with wealthy folks, with big pieces of property to pay big property taxes? Isn't it easier for districts like yours and mine? How do you deal with taxes? How do you even, rich people hate paying taxes. They're actually really good at avoiding them, and they seem to pass that burden on to the rest of us. How do you make the case that, no, these monies are necessary? They're part of what we do to keep this district great.
mean, our taxes here in Scranton are like second only to Philly. And our schools are some of the poorest in the state. So it doesn't necessarily always translate to that either. And I know that, as city council candidate, I wouldn't have really any oversight, but hopefully working relationship with school board. And certainly there's so much crossover in what each of us does. But I just can't quite figure it out, and there's been a lot of corruption in Scranton, going way back. And, that's pretty publicized.
Pretty much known for it.
Former mayor is currently in prison, you know what I mean? So, it's very deep seated, but, what are we getting for these exorbitant taxes that we're paying? Both property taxes, we have the higher income tax bracket. We have commuter tax for those people that live outside of the city and work in Scranton. And that, I sort of have a problem with that, because that is not taking into consideration if, say like Gina, someone who's an attorney, lives outside and then works in the city. This also could be somebody who walks to work at the grocery store because they can't afford the rent in Scranton proper, and they don't even have transportation. And, it just universally applies. So there's a lot of problems, with how we're taxed here and what's happening as a result of those taxes. And that, goes onward to, small business taxing here as well. Like it's very prohibitive. We'd like to say we want to keep the money in the city, but then we're privatizing and selling off all of the money-making entities in the city and left with nothing to generate revenue. And then also we have very
By design. By
policies
design.
for small business, and so it just, none of it makes any sense, and it just goes round and round. So, but we do have a lot of wealth here as well. There's, part of the problem is there's such a dichotomy. There's a lot of very underprivileged people, and then there's a lot of wealthy people, and there is high tax, and we can't figure out exactly where all the money is going in terms of the school board. So it's kind of a mess. They just closed another neighborhood school. Like I said, as a city council candidate, I don't really have any real stake in the game other than being a parent, with kids in the school district. I don't have any oversight, but I participated in, with progressive organizations and community members and trying to protest the closing of a neighborhood school in a very underserved area, where most kids are walking, don't have two vehicles if they have one. All of this, and they didn't care. They shut it down anyway, so all those kids are removed from their neighborhood school. All those families have to figure out how they're getting them there. And then the other schools now overcrowded and not able to provide the, programming that it otherwise could to the students that were supposed to be there in the first place, because now they're using labs and different things for makeshift classrooms for all these displaced children and teachers for that matter, so it was a very sad thing, that happened this year to our community. And I just fear that there's going to be more of the same.
Gina, let me ask you about that, because Heather's answer took my very scary cobweb infested brain off to a different thought. I understand, Jay is running for a school board position, a school board director. And while I do not believe, and then there's a separate town council. So we have these two separate entities that have to operate inside of the same municipality all across the Commonwealth, all across the country. We have more, I know this is an absolute fact for New Jersey. I believe it is the same in Pennsylvania. I think. Please feel free to send me a comment on the Facebook chat and correct me, that there are more school districts in PA, I know it's a fact for New Jersey, than there are municipalities. And even though I would think that a city council would not want to take on all of the job functions of a school board, not to mention the fact that legally they cannot, I don't think you would want to anyway. But why do you suppose in so many different municipalities all across our Commonwealth and in many places all across the country, there is not that cooperation, that partnership, that constant communication between a school board and a town government.
I think it's just like any other thing. Each district is an island, and you have people that might not be in those positions for altruistic reasons, and they don't want the oversight. But I will say, as a city council candidate, I will have not limited, but no say in any of the school district issues. But to speculate as to why, that's all I can think is that they are their own little island with their own chiefs and that kind of thing.
Jay, do you see it that way? Do you see that it's a matter of control and power in either good ways or bad ways? Why do you believe Parkland has any relationship whatsoever with city government? Should it have a better relationship with city government?
So as far as, as part of running a candidate, I truly believe in actually trying to do something before, gain experience in it before actually putting my hat in something, right? So I actually have attended a lot of not just board meetings, but also committee meetings for Parkland. I have not seen the topic of collaboration with the 3 townships, which we are sort of comprised of, in the meetings, because we have been very focused on the education agenda. Again, I'm not on the board, so I do not know if some sort of interchange actually does happen. I mean, I know that we sort of all know all the people who are in these township positions. I mean, I like the idea of sort of collaborating. I have not seen it yet. That doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. Again, I am not on the board today, but I like your idea, Jeff. I mean, why not, right? I mean, we are trying to serve the same community. So if we can exchange ideas, I'm all for it.
And let's keep in mind that just some of the very, very basic nuts and bolts of it, the school buses use the municipal roads. If there's an issue at the school, it's the municipal police that show up. They're there for sporting events, or even some, the school play, if 500 parents are piling into the auditorium, the police are there for that. So there is an inexorable link between these districts and their municipalities. And I find that, and we have it here, sadly, we have it here in the Saucon Valley. There's a sad lack of coordination, of communication between the 2 entities. And it's a shame that it should be that way. Jay, I know we have 10 minutes left with you. You said you mentioned to me that you had to leave at 5:30, and that stinks, sir. We'd love to have you, but I want to make sure that I give you plenty of time. How do people follow you? How do they contact you? How do they help you? Where will you be in the next couple of weeks? What's your campaign focusing on? Are you knocking doors? Are you doing events? Are you having house parties? Is there a candidate forum coming up in Parkland that people would be able to stream? Just take the floor and tell folks, all of that stuff, how to find you, what's coming up, and so on.
Yeah, so I think the best information about me is available on my website. It's j4parkland.com. I'm also on Facebook. So I actually, you could find me on facebook.com/jrahatki. I also am the administrator for the Parkland Parents Group. So Jeff, we are up to now 1,400 members of our own Parkland Parents Group ourselves. It's a great thing, which I think last year when the pandemic started, I created because I thought maybe the parents would sort of need to help each other more. And I'm proud to say that forum has remained non-political, and it has remained true to its belief, which was always to make sure that parents are helping other parents. And I have members of both parties in that forum. And again, we try to make sure that politics stay out of it. In fact, I don't even post my own ads in that forum sometimes. That's how much I care about this. But the bottom line is, that's where people can go find more about me. And I always say an informed voter is the best voter, right? So if you look at my background and if you decide that voting for me is not for you, I'm still thankful that you did the research of looking at my background. On the other hand, if you didn't even get a chance to consider who you are voting for, and if you just go to the booth and play that childhood game of eeny, meeny, miny, mo, then maybe you are not utilizing your vote, which is the most powerful thing which we have in our democracy, the right way. And that's my sort of request to everyone. Please make sure that you look at all the candidates. Just look at what their record is. Just look at what they stand for. Just look at what they have done for the community, right? I mean, people are running when they have not done anything for the community before because they want to make it a political position. And my point is, well, there's so many other political positions to run for, right? Why try to make a community service position a political position, right? And again, there's nothing against politics. I have my own politics, right? But I strongly believe that does not belong in the school board. And some of the candidates who are running in Parkland are trying to make that way. And again, I try to stay above the fray, so I don't necessarily call out individuals because, quite honestly, that gives them an even more platform, right? I mean, I have come to realize that. So I just say, just keep doing the right thing, and that's what I believe in, and that's what I keep doing. So yeah, if anybody wants to find any more information about me, think jforparkland.com, facebook.com/jrohatgi, Parents of Parkland group. If you're a Parkland parent, you can find me there as the administrator and founder of that group. And then if you are willing to contribute to my campaign, then I'm found on Democracy Engine. If you search for Jay Rohatgi, you can easily find me. I have been knocking on doors. I am sending out flyers. I have been attending events. If you want me to come talk to some of your folks, and if you're in Parkland, I'm happy to be wherever you guys need me. So hopefully that gives the ability for all your listeners, Jeff, and wherever this would be shared, to at least know a little bit more about me, my platform, and how they can reach to me if they want to.
And Jay wins the background award for this week's program. Even
Yeah,
more
you need
so,
to give us some tips, Jay.
even more so than the host, he wins for the background award for this week. Gina, you have to leave us at the half-hour mark as well. Please, the same thing for you. The floor is open to you. How do people find you? How do they follow you? How do they learn about you? Where? What will you be doing for this last 16 days?
Okay, so I am on Facebook, Instagram, longoforcouncil.com. Surprisingly though, everyone finds my law firm site and they hit the contact me button there, but I don't care. You're reaching out to me and that's great. What I've been doing is I've been, I have my signs, I have my mailings, we had a forum, but really I've just been speaking with people, knocking on their doors, talking to them on the sidewalk in my neighborhood, that kind of thing. I'm just developing relationships with everyone as if they are my next door neighbor. And I'm surprised that so many people, because I know you had talked about the lack of enthusiasm. They are interested. They do want to talk about these things, but I just don't know what happens on November 2nd if we can, motivate them to then go and vote. And I don't know what the answer is to that. Nonetheless, you can find me on Facebook. Like I said, longoforcitycouncil.com. I'm on Instagram. And you can certainly find me at my law website, www.ginalongo.com.
Do you have anything coming up as far as, do either of you really, Jay? And Heather's going to be stuck with me for a while, so I'm going to beat the heck out of Heather later. But do either of you have any, are all the forums / debate, whatever you want to call it, are they all done for this cycle for you? Do you have more coming up?
Yeah, so I just had one, I think last week on Thursday, the League of Women Voters and the local newspaper, the Williamsport Sun Gazette, they partnered together and they live streamed it on Facebook and on the League of, we're on Facebook for the Sun Gazette and for the League. They both live streamed it. So I think that portion is pretty much done for me. I have other speaking engagements, but nothing on that scale.
And Jay, are you done with that type of stuff?
So unfortunately, Jeff, there was no forum to be had for Parkland School Board candidates. So nobody actually arranged one. I'm actually
Wow.
much in favor of doing one because otherwise, how would you know what the candidates stand for? But so that has been a battle, sort of, trying to get your name out there as all of these candidates, amazing candidates, Gina and Heather can attest. Getting your name out there is a very hard thing. People don't want phone calls. People don't want texts. People throw away the mail cards which you send them. And I just sometimes think, how can so Parkland has 48,000 registered voters. There is no way, even if I did nothing for entire 4 years, which of a school board director tried to knock on every door, that's impossible to do. So I can't possibly knock on every door, even though I try my best to do whatever I possibly can. If people can be a little bit more informed and they can reach out proactively, it will be amazing. If programs like this, Jeff, are amazing too, because they create that excitement, which you said is lacking amongst, let's call these odd year elections. I was going to use the word off year, but I've learned that.
It's just it's election year that ends in an odd number. That's all.
That is correct. So in these odd year elections, so we just need the support like what we are getting, Jeff. And I wish there was a forum, but there isn't one. So in absence of that, please find the information on my website. Please look at what I stand for. Please look at, again, my Facebook page, my parent forum. Just Google me. If you just Google me, don't even have to do anything else. Just Google me and you would find what I've been able to do both in my professional life as well as my community service volunteer life. And if you sort of connect with that in any way, then I've done my job.
What's one of the most disheartening things I think about these campaigns are that everything costs so much money. And like for the primary, I only decided to run, like I said, in March, and it was sort of peak pandemic. You couldn't really go door to door even if you wanted to, and it was so cold. And so we tried to do lots of different things in the community, but it was just prohibitive. And especially as a write-in, those 4,200 or plus people that voted for me in the primary maybe don't even necessarily know to still vote for me as a write-in. And so it's even more imperative to have funding to get mailers out, even though they're probably thrown away, but at least they would convey the information, but like Jay said, it's, like people don't want calls. They don't want texts. You can't tell which number is a landline versus a text when you use those programs a lot of the time anyway. It's really hard. People have busy lives. And even if they want to be informed, they don't want to be, so it's really hard. And I'm so grateful for programs like these. And we also had a League of Women Voters Forum. They do this every, year in election cycle, here in Scranton, and they're amazing, prohibitive, of course, too, with COVID and have to be on Zoom and then publicized. So maybe not as likely to have people participate and watch, but those that are for sure on the ballot did not even respond to the invitation. So Alex and I were left as the only people that would have been on that forum. So it just didn't happen because we're running together. And everybody already saw me on the original one in the primary, so that was kind of a shame. But again, like they're on the ballot, they know that unless we're able to pull through this write-in platform, that they are in their seats, you know what I mean? So it's just really hard. And I hate to think about the people that voted in the primary for me and wanted me as their candidate, and then now their vote will go to somebody that they didn't necessarily pick originally. So it's just kind of a disheartening process, just the funds that it takes and the difficulty that just average Joes and Joannes or whatever like us have raising that money.
That's what
Um,
Citizens United has brought us. It's not just a national problem. Citizens United
Yeah.
did not just destroy and legalize bribery on a national level. It legalized it all the way down, so to speak, down to the most local of levels. Gina and Jay, I know you have to leave us. Heather, I believe, is staying. I will get to talk to her deeper as we get on. Gina and Jay are Jays for tonight, besides me. Thank you both very, very much for being here. Please stay in touch. Let us know what happens with your races. Go to our Facebook page, post, send me stuff to post. We'll put it up there. Our folks are going to want to know how you made out. And please know that this program is open to you after you are victorious, and you can come back and talk to us about the difference between running and governing, because that can sometimes be quite the transition. So we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much for being here. I do appreciate it. We wish you the best of luck, and for goodness sakes, please stay safe while you're out there campaigning and getting yourselves out there. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Good
And
luck
thank
to
you for
both of
having me.
you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure meeting you, Gianna and Heather, and of course you, Jeff. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Heather, let's get into what's happening in Scranton. What are the big issues? I'd asked Jay earlier in the program, not just the big issues. Well, what are the big issues generally? What are the big issues that you're hearing about as you campaign? But what are the big issues to you? Is there an issue up there maybe that people aren't necessarily thinking about off the top of their heads, but it's important to you? It's something you want to accomplish outside of the biggies. What are the big ones? What are the big ones for you?
I mean, obviously, as a nurse in an advanced practice, healthcare provider, as an educator in the medical system, healthcare, is always at the forefront of what I care about. Access to healthcare for everyone, and I feel like it's a right, not a privilege, and so there's a lot of change that needs to be made, obviously nationally, but at the state and local level as well. Before even we had an inkling of any pandemic, the services here, as in so many other places, were so lacking, and our mayor is amazing and has a lot of great innovative ideas, and had tried in the past to institute a position for a public health coordinator in the city, and it was voted not to be funded by the existing city council for whatever reason, and it just made absolutely no sense. It is something that's going to be pushed through now, but only because of donations, from my understanding, from other entities to fund the position for the first couple of years. So that's something that I would like to see be permanent, because there's so much in health and wellness, and so many healthcare disparities that exist for underserved folks, and minority people, and people in poverty, that existed long before and will remain long after the pandemic is over. So that's something that should always be a priority of a community, is providing its citizens healthcare. Women's reproductive rights. I don't know that we'll have anything like that on the agenda as a city council, but that's something that's obviously near and dear to me as a woman, but also as a women's healthcare provider. So we have big issues with lack of public transportation, and previous corruption in that regard, and contracts, not only for school, but just locally. They're, like I said, we pay these high taxes, but our schools are terrible, and even though we have great teachers, they've been 5 years without a contract, which is not acceptable. So they're leaving, they're underpaid, they're treated poorly, they're losing jobs from the schools that are closing. So these are things that, even though, like I said, I don't have, as a city council person, oversight with, but I certainly have working relationships with those school board candidates that I have met, throughout this experience, and will do whatever I can to help them fix this mess, as a mom, and just as a community member that cares about the families that live here and their children, and the future of everything. So that's something. There's a lot of talk about embellishing our public transportation, which is super important, especially to those that aren't as privileged as some of us are, in terms of having access to transportation. There's been talk for years upon years about reestablishing like an Amtrak, service to go to the city, which, is something that is widely, desired. And so hopefully that will happen. Our roads are atrocious. We have so many like awesome resources, natural resources here, parks and pools and recreational things, for families to engage in. And they, are just in disrepair, because of previous mismanagement. And there's only so much that can be done so fast, especially in these times right now, with our new, mayor, who is doing a great job. But that's something on the agenda. Our housing, believe in fair housing and affordable housing, and the programs to help people, with that, and with weatherizing. Like a lot of our current homes are very much aging. This is an old city, and people can't afford to weatherize and climatize their homes. And so I think we just need to utilize those programs, much like the public health coordinator position that was voted not to be funded. We do have a human rights coalition in the city, but it's sort of a name alone. I know people that actually are appointed to serve on it, and they really don't have any actual power or have any actual regular meetings. So I'd like to see that's fully funded and supported in the immediate future, because it's so very important. Obviously, Scranton is no exception to issues with police, issues, and they are doing some work toward that. But from speaking personally with especially minority populations, of course, that it's not where it needs to be. So I'd love to see some focus on that.
When you talk about a public health coordinator or roads / infrastructure, my work takes me into Scranton. I have to say, the major motorways are really quite impressive, actually. That 81 Northeast Extension, 380 just outside the city are all in wonderful condition. There's the campaign manager. They're all in wonderful condition. But I have to say, when you get off of those major motorways, the local roads are pretty darn rough. When we combine, I guess, even though those things might seem disparate, where is the CARES Act money for Scranton? Where's the American Rescue Plan money for Scranton? How much is it? Where is it being spent? Or is it being spent?
It is not currently being spent because, from my understanding from watching the town halls by our mayor, the rules and regulations still are not quite clear to those cities that are receiving them. So while they know, a general number, and can kind of try and plan and prioritize as a city what would be ideal, it does not necessarily mean that that's what's going to be allowable. So I don't know what the holdup is, to be honest. And, that's sort of one of the things, in the candidate form and things for the primary, one of the things that I was at a disadvantage on, because there were two that were incumbents and one who was, formerly running schools here. So, as an outsider, yes, I can look at like city budget items and things like that, but I'm not part of those like discussions as I would be if I was already serving on council. So all I can do is try and do my homework and catch up as best I can and just keep informed. I'm always watching. She does regular town halls, Mayor Cognetti, and it's very informative, to just general public, whoever wants to watch them. But, people like me that are interested in knowing, where those funds are going to go. There are a lot of things here, and we talked a lot about the Democratic Party, which I'm fully a member of and agree with overall policies. But like we discussed for privately before this, that doesn't mean they're always right. And here, because President Biden is from here, there's this push to recognize that as a city for a lot of different reasons, and that's not necessarily something that I disagree with. But in a time of pandemic where a lot of small business narrowly made it through, if they did it all, the vote was to rename both the Central Scranton Expressway and Spruce Street in downtown after President Biden. Which, the expressway is one thing, there really isn't business ownership there, and the onus is not on like small business to sort of make those changes. But for Spruce Street, it most definitely is. And it was very opposed by business owners and people that live there because of the cost that they'll incur. And yet, council unanimously voted that in. So like they've already changed the signage for the expressway. And my understanding is that despite opposition going forward, for the Spruce Street part as well, so my running mate Alex is a small business owner, not on Spruce specifically, that has ties in that small business community, and that's what we're choosing to spend money on, and from what I understand, businesses are allowed to sort of apply for some grant monies to help offset the cost of what it will cost to change everything address wise, but it's probably not going to be enough. And
it's kind of like prioritizing the ceremonial over the tactile, over the real
why
work.
not a library? Why not a trail? Why not a, I don't know,
rather than repaving Spruce Street.
Right, correct.
And
right.
fixing the sewer
never
lines,
mind
we'll just rename it.
Yeah, people's private vehicles getting destroyed by potholes because we can't, have the funds to fix the roads or, quickly enough. A lot of it is not necessarily the fault of city workers at all. It's just during COVID, the restrictions that they had, a lot of it got delayed. So some of the paving work that needed to have been done was not done. And so now they're trying to play catch up, and we have so many infrastructure problems here, water and sewer and, things that befall like aging cities a lot of the time. And so roads that would have been paved needed to be torn up to fix those things.
Yeah, well, that's the right way to do it, by the way, is to completely mill them down and then start from scratch. So
rather than redo them and then tear them back up again. And so the mayor and all the people involved in that are being very cognizant of trying to coordinate planning, which I think is
this is the problem we have with young campaign staff. It's the candidate that's the center of attention.
Yes, honey.
Mom, can you just stop what you're doing and hang out with me? It's Sunday night and it's school tomorrow. And
yes, we already had one come down that asked when I'm going to make dinner.
Oh. Well, you tell me when you need to go, but can you tell folks about the if we separate party affiliation out of it, and I know that you did talk about that earlier on, how about just the nuts and bolts of being a write-in candidate as opposed to an actual printed ballot position where folks are going to see your name? Can you describe for folks, for the viewers and listeners, this is your first time running for anything, so really, in a way, you don't know any different, and that might actually be a good thing, but how much more difficult is it for you when you're speaking with people, or like, do you have to have you printed out in your campaign literature like a sample? Here's what I need you to do. I need you to write HEAT, and really, what are the challenges of the nuts and bolts of being a write-in as opposed to just being a name on the ballot?
So I think just in general, an awareness that I'm even still intending to run, you know what I mean? So before, because there were only Democratic candidates, really the only mailers that needed to be, sent out, or the only people that needed to be approached were people that were Democrats, right? Because the Republicans didn't even have us on the ballot. They could write us in. So if they just heard by word of mouth, but unless you got, some crazy number of write-ins, you weren't going to appear on the Republican ballot for the primary, so that wasn't the focus. And I honestly didn't even have that on my radar, even though I, like I said, I did disagree with the fact that that much of the population just had no city council candidates until the general. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me as a local government position. So anyway, it's much more difficult, from finances to just effort. That's like Jay was saying, that's a lot more doors to knock on.
Right.
If that's your focus. Events are okay, because now I don't have to worry about just getting the petition signed. It could only be registered voters as Democrats in Scranton. So if it was open to everyone, that part would have been easier, because I had friends and colleagues and people that I see day to day that just weren't registered Democrats, that couldn't sign my petition to get on the ballot. So it's just it's very difficult for sure. And I did meet a person from a neighboring municipality who did run a write-in campaign and won, but they had a very big issue in that municipality that she was sort of running on, and I think that was like a large part of the platform. But it mainly comes down to the financial piece, because sending out mailers to that much more of the population, and they don't, it's not like they just walk in and see my name on the ballot and go, oh, I want to vote for a female because every other candidate is male, or I kind of recognize that name.
Or
It's
I
sort of
saw
just
her-
out of sight, out of mind.
I saw her name on the mailer and now I
Yeah.
see it on the ballot. You don't have that.
Don't have that. They have to write us in. They have to spell it right. I mean, there is some concession given to, like, if people, it's kind of a very obviously intended to be me, but it was a little misspelled. Like, you can file that with, the county, but for the most part, I mean, I don't know where we got pens. We're going to try and have poll workers at every one of the polling places, but it's 27 places. And even if you only have one individual there, they're not going to catch everybody walking in and talk to them. Or, some people don't give you the time of day because they're coming on their lunch break or their whatever before they get home to see their kids,
I should think
So-
poll greeters would be very, very important for you. I would.
Yes, super important,
super important for you.
and so anybody that would like to volunteer, that's important. Even in the primary, I didn't have somebody covering every single one of the polls. I did meet, lots of other candidates for other positions, like I said, the school board, and they were gracious and wonderful and helpful, the mayor's people and the school board candidates and the judge candidates and things like that. My people handed out their literature and they handed out mine, so it was really a team effort.
That's how you build those relationships too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many good people running for offices here, and it's so exciting to be even a small part of that, even if
we do forget.
I don't win.
I think sometimes folks do forget, though, if you are successful, we hope you are. It's one of the interesting things about campaigning is that, let's just, for the sake of argument, that your running mate are successful and one of the other incumbents is successful, you still have to work with that person. You're gonna have to govern together. You're gonna have to talk to each other and vote on things and discuss things. And there's a policy initiative here. Well, I think we should add this particular little thing or that little thing. And that animosity, if there is any, and maybe that's too strong of a word, but that has to disappear after election day. You have to do the job then, because you've been elected to do the job and you have to do it.
Well, and there's never been any animosity on my part, certainly. I think, I tried my best to actually reach out to all the candidates and get to know them, and was kind of like, isn't this what we do? Like, wouldn't we want to know where each other stand? And I, as a newcomer, I didn't know really how it usually goes, and if it would be weird for me to, just a moment. If it would be weird to do that, so I'm friends with those that were approachable to begin friendships with, and not with those that aren't, and things like that. But I don't believe that any of them, and I've never said so, are not good people, or that they don't have necessarily the city's best interests in mind. I just don't agree with the notion that you don't have to do any work to keep your position. Like, none of them are even doing any campaigning that I can tell, or talking to people that I can tell, and there's no platform anywhere. like one of the things that people said to me was that they were just impressed with how many issues I address, like on the website. And, we try to do sort of grassroots interview recordings with myself and my friend and mentor and campaign manager, treasurer, everything, Alex. We just made up an interview like we're doing here, and we did it. We were going to be at a city park, and the weather was prohibitive, so we did it in his parlor, and we posted it. But that's one of the things that people were most intrigued by, I think, is that I actually know what I stand for, and I do stand for something. You know what I mean? I don't see it as just a job, and whatever comes in my lap, I will address as a city council person. I have strong beliefs, and they're deeply rooted in social justice and promoting the best quality of life for literally every person in this city, not just those that are like me. So I think that that's what spoke to people the most, and that's why the campaign was able to be so successful in such a short amount of time, because that word spreads. Whereas I just don't see that from the others, and that doesn't mean they don't stand for something. It means they're not telling anybody that they do. So people want to know what
I've
we plan to
told
do.
every candidate I work with that the power of these little 10-second, 15-second, 60 seconds. Hey, I'm at so-and-so a park. Come talk to me.
Yeah.
Ask me questions. Pick up some literature, read it. Let's have a conversation. I'll be here. Or I'm at the so-and-so street fest. Come see me. Come talk to me. They're extremely powerful and they're free. Which is important for every candidate. City council is not a full-time position in Scranton, is it?
No.
Not.
The meetings are one night a week, and of course, like responsibilities to attend events and things like that. Different, I think you can be involved as much or as little as you really want to be. Like there are all sorts of side committees and groups and focus groups, and some do more than others. It seems like,
So is it assumed? Would you say throughout the residents of the city, is it assumed that because you are seeking this position that you obviously want to do it?
Yeah,
because you're certainly not doing it for the money.
No, not for the money. And I mean, I'm a very, very, very busy person. I have 5 children. I am a nurse midwife, and our schedules are insane. And I also teach part-time, and I try to be involved in community organizations and stuff as well. So it wouldn't be easy. It definitely would not be easy, but it's so important to me. Like, it's honestly what's kept me going this year is the passion that I've found for running. It's just been such a positive force for me, and trying to do something that I think really matters. Not that I don't think my job does, but I've been doing the work that I do, which has a high level of burnout for over a decade now, and sometimes healthcare especially is very disheartening, and sometimes you just need another outlet. And I guess that's been that for me. So definitely it's something that I very much desire.
I live in the Lehigh Valley. We are 5-10 minutes max from Center City, Bethlehem. I'm sure you're not unfamiliar with Bethlehem. Bethlehem is, dare I say, I'm biased because I live here and because I've always loved it. I went to Moravian College there. So I'm definitely a biased opinion, but Bethlehem is a bit of a miracle in that when Bethlehem Steel shut and finally shut, there was nothing in the city. Nothing. Like nothing. I mean, when you go down Main Street now, it is wonderful shops and restaurants and nightlife, and the Hotel Bethlehem has been completely restored to its original 1920s Art Deco brilliance and glory. When I was going to college there was nothing on Main Street. I think Johnny's Deli was there, and the Moravian Bookstore. The hotel was always on the brink of catastrophe because one person after another would come in and decide to modernize the beautiful Art Deco 1920s hotel. But I So where is Scranton in that? What do you see as the future for Scranton? Like so many cities throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, you're talking an old industrial city with now the middle part has been removed. Now it's just old city. The industrial part's gone. And in all likelihood, never coming back. Where does that leave Scranton? What do you see for the future of Scranton? Is it tourism? Is it history? Is it maybe different kinds of businesses? What is it? What do you see?
I think, it's a vibrant community. I think we need to have new ideas and innovation, but keep true to our roots, and industrial, nature and the civil rights movement and the role that was played, in that here. We need to embrace like the youth of the city and see it grow, because otherwise it's just gonna, like you said, just get stagnant. We need to promote small business ownership, because is a lot of interest in having small business here, and it's very prohibitive. And then we had the pandemic on top of it, so people are moving their businesses out of the city proper. Because of those practices. And there are so many great people here with great ideas, and we have so many great nonprofit organizations, with the universities and colleges here. So I think that we just need to all put all of our ideas together and get them to come to fruition. Not be so based only in history, but still recognize that history as being important. And this is a city with strong union roots and industrial, coal mining and all of those, things. So I think that, like I've been to a concert, like you were just saying, I've been to a concert of Steel Stacks. It's fantastic. Like there can be an evolution of the history into something new. And I think that there are a lot of people interested in doing that and doing those things. It's just been a little slow, with some of the corruptive practices and things that were going on prior to the leadership that we have now. So I think it's all positive change. It just isn't always fast change, but making neighborhoods more walkable, having more of a city nightlife, so that we keep some of these young people that are going to colleges and universities here, living here versus coming in just for an education and then moving away. So I think that we need to have things that attract that population.
It's funny that you said that, because Bethlehem and Easton have turned over properties, space, monies, on occasion changed city ordinance, planning rules, zoning rules for their institutions of higher education, realizing that we've only got so much left here to rebuild this city on, be it history or the fact that we're home to these fantastic institutions of higher learning. Is that a path for Scranton? I mean, I know that when I come up 81, after I get off the Northeast Extension, make that ridiculous loop, the two loops, end up on 81, one of the very first signs that hits me is, Scranton City exits, and the very next one is exit with about 8 colleges listed for it. You know which road sign I'm talking about. It's like this exit to get to these 200 different institutions over here. How much does the city need to kind of give in, bow down, help, partner with, kind of give these colleges what they want? I believe some of these older cities have used or built on the fact that they're homes to these institutions of higher learning, and said we got to give them what they need, because these kids are pretty much all we have going right now, and we got to give them what they want. Does Scranton need to do that?
I think that it's a balance, because we need to do that to some extent, so that those entities stay, and that they have programs that encourage their students to stay after as residents and build lives here. But also, something I feel strongly about is they're tax exempt. They need to be contributing something back to the city as well. And I work for a nonprofit health organization here that does a lot of work for the city, And then we have a for-profit one here, as well. And if they pull out, which there's so much rumor that they're going to do, then we'd have another. They're footing a lot of tax money because they're a for-profit hospital system. But if they leave, and it's sold to what surely would be another nonprofit, whether it's UPMC or St. Luke's or Lehigh Valley Health Network or anything like that, like they then would be exempt as well. So like something I believe strongly in is the pilots, the payments in lieu of taxes programs, to not have that huge loss of revenue, because while these nonprofits that we have, especially the educational ones, are vital to the city life and the population and all the innovative progressive programs that some of them have that benefit the city, it also is a huge tax loss, you know what I mean? So I think that there's a balance that maybe we can be more innovative in programs that help, with internships of students in the city, things like that maybe
What about
there's
just
more that can be
partnering?
done.
What about just partnering with the city government? If a University of Scranton student is going for criminal justice, why aren't they in with the police department? Why aren't they in the DA's office? If a student at I'm picking on Scranton University, there's other universities up there that I'm blanking on names.
Lackawanna College.
Lackawanna, right? If they're going for urban planning, why aren't they in the zoning department? Why aren't they in?
Yeah, absolutely. I
working
think we
with
need to maximize those partnerships, and it needs to be attractive to young people. We can't just only be focused on our roots and not focus on what, young people want and need in the city that they choose to stay living in, so one of our current city council members, Jessica Rothschild, like she came to college here and she and her wife chose to stay in this area, and it's fantastic, but I wouldn't say that that's the norm. You know what I mean? A lot of times it's people that, had grew up here and so they don't want to leave their families, so they are staying here and things like that. But a lot come here and then move away.
And it may never be the norm, but it shouldn't be an exception either,
Right.
should it? I mean,
We need attractive,
spend
affordable
4 to 5
housing.
years. You spend 4 or 5 years at a place, you should get to know it pretty good. I
Yeah.
mean, and I should think that if a student that was again at the university who said, who was, again, I'm using the same example, but was 4 teachers for that matter, going to learn how to be teachers. Why aren't they in the Scranton School District? But if I was studying urban planning and I had an internship at City Hall working with the zoning department or the Department of Public Works or whatever, and I helped institute a way to, I don't know, a way to redirect streets or change the way the pattern of stoplights operate to increase the flow of traffic or something like that. If I had that investment, if I made that personal investment in the city, I just might want to stay to see it through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or even if I was studying a restaurant management and somehow decided to open my own, or I opened, I'm running this restaurant and my classmate runs that restaurant. Let's go check that place out. Or it seems they might not ever be the rule. I don't think it's ever going to get to a point where 85% of the graduating class is staying in the city, but it probably shouldn't be, you probably shouldn't be able to count the number of students that do it on one hand either. That's the kind of partnership we're talking about.
Absolutely. I think that, there's a lot of opportunity there, and there are great people that want to see the same thing. More support at the city, government level.
I feel that I should let you get to dinner.
I hear that people are interested in dinner.
I would
my house.
I would gladly keep you to the end of the program because we enjoy talking to you, and I think what you're trying to do is genuine. And I have a lot of politicians and I have a lot of candidates on this program, and I'm fond of all of them. There's an extra level of genuineness to what you're trying to do because you're doing it right in and you're doing it with practically no money. So please stay in touch with, what are you making for dinner anyway?
I don't even know.
Okay. Well,
We
you
already
have-
went
it'll
the
take-
frozen pizza route for lunch, so I'll have to
It'll-
make something real, I think.
We are, how far away from Scranton? About 90 minutes?
Yeah, hour and 20.
Oh, hour 20. All right, you have an hour 20 to figure out what you're making. We'll see.
They're coming over.
We'll see you at
I love
8:30.
to cook. It's one of my favorite things. I'm just
We'll see you at
ill-prepared
8:30.
today.
So Think of something very, very typically Scranton. Is there a typically Scranton food? I don't think there is. Currently, is there?
Anything
I think just
Anything
Northeast PA. Yeah,
Northeast PA.
Italian. We got a lot
Yeah.
of Italian here.
Listen, I really want to thank you for being here. I know that you duty calls, parenting duty calls, and I'm see in the chat from Megan that is Lucy, your daughter. That's
That is
behind.
Lucy.
correct? One of
runs
five.
the
Where are the
city.
other four?
Upstairs, surprisingly, not making very much noise. Well, one's away at college, so
Okay.
he doesn't exactly count right now.
So you have from college. Is Lucy the youngest?
Yeah,
Okay, so you have from college age all the way to Lucy is
She's three.
Three.
Yeah, soon to be 22.
Wow, she looks older than
three.
that. Wow.
Yeah, she does.
Wow.
She's very.
She's tall. She
looking
looks
and
older than
acting.
that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So college age to age 3 and a dog.
Yes.
But other than that, it's a very quiet house.
Yeah, very quiet.
And you have a full-time job and you're running for office.
And
But
a
other than
part-time
that,
job.
well, you have 2 full-time jobs. You have parent and midwife, and you're running for office with 5 kids, 1 in college and a dog. But other than that, you're just being lazy around the
Yeah.
house all the time.
I never get anything done.
I want to thank you very, very much for being here.
Thank you
We
so much
wish-
for having me.
We wish you the absolute best of luck. I beg you, please stay safe out in the trail. As a healthcare worker, you understand
Mhm.
why I say that. You
Yes.
you also understand how to do it. I don't have to tell you how to do it, but just please, please, please stay safe out there. Before you leave, is there anything that we did not get to?
Well, I
you
did
wanted
not
to talk
give
about-
my website and all of
I
that.
was gonna, I was getting to that. All of your contact. How do people follow you? How do they reach you? How do they help you? And if there's any issues that we did not get to talk about or that we didn't get to fully finish talking about, I just want to turn the floor over to you. You take it away, whatever you want to throw out there.
So there are lots and lots of issues in my positions on the website, heatherforscranton.com. I do have a Facebook page as well. There is an Instagram, but I have to be honest, I'm not an Instagram savvy person. So since Alex doesn't have as much free time right now to help me with that, that has not been maintained. So that is not the go-to social media to look at. But the Facebook page, I do, try to post not only my own things, but things that of interest politically, that the mayor is doing, that other organizations are doing, that other,
And you know the mayor,
on the
okay?
campaign trail for judgeship for,
You know the mayor.
What's
I'm
that?
just saying, Kristen. No, Chris, you know the mayor up there, don't you, Paige?
Paige Cognetti.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
know
she's
her.
fabulous.
But yes,
I've been in an event with her, but I wouldn't say that I know her.
we politically know her. Let's put it that way.
Politically know her. She's very busy,
Laughed at
very
the
busy
same
lady.
Hi, silly face. We see you. We see you.
So, those are there. And my running mate, Alex Molfettis, like I said, is a small business owner, family of Greek immigrants. He's very interested in doing good work for the city as well. I'm sure he would love to talk to you too. I think he's a
Next
little
week.
disheartened
Next week's
right
our
now
last.
with
Yeah,
with the
next
political
week's our last
process,
one
but-
before. Next week's our last show before Election Day. So if he's going to, he needs to do it next week. But
Okay, I'll have him get in touch if he's able.
hello, Princess.
So we'll see everybody hopefully at the polls, regardless of who you intend to vote for.
And
but
if you
would
have your
appreciate
mail-in
voting.
ballots, folks, if you have your mail-in ballots, fill them out and drop them off. Let's not count on the Postal
Yes,
Service, sadly.
absolutely. And it's a very easy process. I did it myself, for the primary election. We have a drop box downtown and it was very easily accessible. And, so definitely do that. And remember to write me in, Heather
You got it.
McCone, because I will not appear on the
Easy to
ballot this
spell.
time around.
Very easy to spell.
Yes.
Well, thank you. She has lost patience, so I'm going to let you
Yes,
go
she
get dinner.
has.
But thank you again for being here. I hope this isn't the last time that we see you. Please come. Let us know how you made out.
Definitely, I will.
We'll be rooting for you, and you stay safe.
Thank you so much. And thanks for all you do.
Enjoy dinner. Bye, Lucy.
Bye-bye.
That's Heather McCone running a write-in campaign, which is not easy, folks. Not easy. It really isn't. If you think, or maybe you don't think, you think regular campaigns can be hard, and they are hard. There's some inside political circles that will say, when I say it's a hard thing to run, and they just kind of giggle and like, it's not hard. You get to go talk to people. You get to do. Even people inside political circles will kind of giggle like, it's not hard. It is. It can be. It's something to put yourself out there like that, to become a public figure. Heather was never a public figure before this. Gina was to an extent. Being a lawyer, she's out there a bit. And Jay was never a public figure before this. It's something to put yourself out there. It is. It's not. And in this climate, and I mean political climate, not weather-ish climate, not environment climate, it can be an exceptionally difficult thing to put yourself out there. Again, as I talked about at the top of the program, there are folks that aren't just in office, but are running for office, who are being followed, harassed, threatened. People protesting in front of their homes, threatening their neighbors. People that'll, screaming that we know where your kids go to school and things like this. This is a strange time. It's a frightening time. So for someone like Heather, well, for all of our guests, Heather just has that extra added disadvantage, I guess I'd say. I was going to say burden, choice of words, play, I guess, but of not even being on the ballot. If you're someone who's convinced that you're going to vote for Heather McCone and you walk in and you kind of get thrown because you look for her name on the ballot, like, oh, no, I vote for Heather, but I don't see your name here. Now, you would think, she's running a write-in campaign. You're making that clear as you move along, but it's not always, it's not always that simple. People don't always, sadly, people don't always use their brains. And so she's got that added thing against her. And it's and
it has a lot of barriers because you don't, if you're a write-in, I don't know that people know
Cool.
this, but
It'll come to you.
not quite used to all this fancy equipment
It's
here.
just pull it. It'll be fine. I have it anchored to the desk. It's fine.
But I was just going down. I don't know if people are aware of this because I certainly wasn't aware of this until I worked on a campaign. But when you become a nominee and your name gets on the ballot, the party will come in and they will give you access to certain resources. If you're
Right,
write-in
right.
like Heather, you
None.
have none of that.
Stuff.
You may
They don't help you fundraise. You don't
Yeah.
get Vote Builder. You don't get walk lists. You don't
Yes.
get voter name. You get no support.
Yeah,
None.
and for viewers, if you're listening, you're going, what did Jeff just say? What is Vote Builder? Vote Builder is the database that candidates and campaigns use to be able to contact and interact with voters so they know who to go talk to, because it's not a useful moment of your time to go knock on the door of a voter that is never going to vote for you. And so you need Vote Builder. So maybe Heather might be able to find another candidate who would work with her and
Exactly.
help her. But
And she has a running mate,
Yeah.
but he's doing write-in. They're both doing write-in, so
Yeah.
they don't. Neither one of them have that. So, folks, we're gonna next week on the program. We're not done yet. We're not leaving you. We plan to take you to 8 p.m. Eastern time. It is 7:15 now. The phone line is open. So wherever you might be on Facebook, our home group Facebook page is That Other Side of Information. There's been a lot of great folks in there. Some great, Melissa has been just sending in lovely comments about Heather, and some of them pretty funny. Heather will get a chuckle out of that, I think, after she has to go back, a chance to go back and see this. Randall says, our friend Randall, who calls us on occasion, says in the chat, write-in candidates campaigns are extremely hard because even if people write in, just one letter misspelled or left out could possibly not count for the write-in candidate. And you heard Heather mention that she does have a bit of leeway.
But
If people
left up
were
the
to-
county.
It's left up to interpretation. There's no hard and fast rule about it. Now, Her last name is McCone. It's Mecone. I would assume if somebody left off the E, she'd get the benefit of the doubt there. But if it's misspelled that badly, I don't know how bad you can misspell Heather. There's only one way even to spell it, so far as I'm aware. I think she's going to get a pretty good amount of leeway as far as, if somebody was to leave the E off the end of her name, or they put a Nicone, N-E-C, instead of M-E-C. I think she's going to be pretty, get some leeway there, but it is hard. It's difficult. It's real difficult, but I got thrown off, but I wanted to take Randall's comment. He was kind enough to put a comment in the chat, so I wanted to make sure that I got to it. But wherever you are on Facebook, That Other Side of Information, we will be here till 8 p.m. The comments chat section is open. I didn't even answer it. He hung up that quick. So that's open. You can tweet me at That Kennedy Talk, email thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. hot101.net on the Apple App Store, Google Play Store for Android, and the TuneIn Radio app, and of course TCP. And if you missed any of tonight's program, go to the YouTube channel, our YouTube channel, which is also called That Other Side of Information. You will see all of our recorded programs on our library, what is basically our library at this point, youtube.com, That Other Side of Information. We are on Instagram at That Other Side of Information. We are on, what am I forgetting? TikTok. I remembered to do a TikTok a mighty 20 minutes before I went live on the air. Patreon.com is That Other Side of Information. TikTok is That Other Side of Information. Instagram is That Other Side of Information. Do you see a pattern happening here, folks? And the phone line is open, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. Randall, welcome to the program.
Hey, Jeff, it's always good to hear your program, my bro.
Good to hear from you, sir. And thank you, by the way. Randall took us up on our request last week, folks, and it is similar to the request I made at the top of the program. He vowed last week to invite people to the page. He did exactly that. We are now at an even 900 the last time I checked, Randall. So I'm going to implore everyone again. I'm going
to put that out once a week.
If you are
making another promise.
If you're a listener,
once a week.
If you're a regular listener to the program, if you are on or a member of our Facebook page, go through your friends list. Just pick 5 people and invite them to be part of the page. I'm telling you, when we get over 1,000, everything changes. So we're asking you to please do that the way Randall did. Go through your friends list. Just pick 5 people. If all 900 of you did that, that's 4,500. I think we'll be able to get over 1,000. So I'm asking you to do that for us this week. And of course, all the social media, we ask you for a like, a follow, a subscribe, whatever the appropriate term is at the different social medias. But anyway, Randall, thank you for calling. What did you want to say, sir?
I just wanted to comment on what I wrote into you. I know from many instances over decades of being involved here in Delaware County, PA, the Democratic Committee person, that if it's not an exact spelling, that it will not count. Well, they will put this spelling in one column, that spelling in another column, and then the correct spellings in the third column. But they will, under PA election law, no election board, county election board, can combine those 3, even though it was everybody's personal intent to be the same person, to be collectively added up. So it is very important to always go in your voting booth with a piece of paper. If you're supporting a write-in candidate, always go with a piece of paper that has the correct spelling of the name for the write-in.
Agreed. I can't say much more to that. I think you covered it. I mean, yeah. The best way to support your write-in candidate is to spell the name correctly. I'm with you.
And the best way to do that is to take a piece of paper or notebook in with that name spelled correctly.
Agreed, because
Because if
I
you're
think you're not
if you're
allowed to take
Randall-
I believe you're not allowed to take campaign materials into the booth with you if I'm mistaken, if I have it correct.
Anybody under PA law, for example, you can take any sample ballot in with you.
Yeah.
That is legal. You can take anything in. And you can even go in.
Oh, it's the
Yeah,
wearing
there will be
buttons. I'm
judges
getting
of
confused.
elections that will challenge that.
Right.
But you can, if you are a voter, not a watcher, but if you are a voter, you can wear on a T-shirt supporting the candidate because you're going in as a voter, and they can't deny you the right to vote because you're wearing a T-shirt or something. Yeah, there are judges of election that will challenge that, and that's when I was called for the lawyers to come to my precincts, wherever I've lived over the decades, to get that straightened out.
Sounds good, my friend. Thank you for being part of the program again this week, and thank you for being a loyal listener. I mean it very, very, very much when I say thank you, and that we appreciate you, and that every single tell everyone you know.
And I believe
I'm sorry, Christine, I interrupt you. Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna ask, am I correct in this, Randall? But I believe like if I'm supporting a candidate, as long as I'm 100 feet away from the poll, I could hand out a slip of paper that says, you know, so-and-so is running as a write-in candidate. That
I've seen write-in candidates have volunteers stand outside of every precinct polling place and hand out palm cards with the correct spelling, with a message, support this write-in candidate, you know, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, I thought so because I mean that wouldn't that be the same as just handing out lit for any candidate who's on the ballot?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing. It's protected by Pennsylvania election law.
One of the few things remaining protected by election law in the PA,
Yeah, well,
shall we
again,
say, but there's a topic for a different
Some
day.
judges of elections like to disregard the law.
Right. When it's convenient, you are correct. When it's right. When it's convenient, I should say that you're correct. That's what they do. They just ignore it, sadly. I agree. How are the prospects, before I say goodbye to you, Randall, how are the prospects for the candidates that you personally are supporting? And maybe more generally speaking, what would you say is the general awareness of this election cycle in where you live?
Well, I'm living presently in this part of my life in Brookhaven Borough and Delaware County, which is the county directly to the west and southwest of Philadelphia County, the suburbs. Up until 2019, the Republican Party in this county controlled all, especially obviously all county elections, for 150 years. We took first a minority in 2017 in the county level, and then we took majority in 2019 on the county level, and we, you know, again, 150 years, we've had nothing but Republican Commonwealth judges here in our county. The last two local off-year elections, we've won Democrats for county judges, and I feel really optimistic about county elections. I don't feel that optimistic about my municipal elections here or my school board elections here. My school board's been controlled by the Republican Party for like 25 years. And as far as I'm concerned, they've taken academically, they've taken Pindocka School District here to the dogs. I've got great friends running, and obviously I hope and pray they win. We've got one out of 8 borough council members that are Democrat, and we've got an incumbent and 3 never been involved politics candidates running, and I hope the same thing. But this part of Delaware County is still majority Trump land, so I don't know how that's going to go. But there's been massive change in this county. The vast majority of our state representatives in Harrisburg, the vast majority of our state senators in Harrisburg are now Democrat, have all been elected in the last 2 off-year election cycles. So, I'm optimistic of what the future is going to hold, but I'm living in one of these little bubbles that's still Trump land.
Okay.
So that's my take.
How would you, again, before I let you get back, what would you say the awareness is? Not necessarily who's supporting whom, but the general awareness or understanding of the gravity of the importance of these odd year elections in your neck of the woods there.
I would classify it the same as nationwide, that the majority of people do not understand, first off, how important local elections are. They don't understand that their greatest amount of taxes is their school board tax, is their municipal tax, and is their county taxes. And if people, well, if you're middle class or working poor, obviously those 3 classes of taxes equal more than your federal taxes.
Mm-hmm.
As far as your question was, Jeff,
Mm-hmm.
no, it's like any off-year election. Only a minority pays attention, and I hate to say it, but it's the truth in my opinion. The Republicans always get out 20% of their voters for off-year elections, and off-year elections are won or lost by only 30% of the voters actually voting in an off-year election. And that's been the dilemma for decades, the Democratic Party, to try and energize their voters to make sure they vote in off-year elections. And again, I've witnessed it. I've been elected committee person for 43 years now. And I've seen every off-year election, and that's the way it's always rolled. So all I can tell, if you support a Democratic candidate, make sure you get out there and vote and talk to your friends and family to get them out there and vote. And we can overcome this traditional disparity between the parties actually voting in an off-year election.
Sounds good to me, my friend. I'm going to leave you on that note. That was really well said. Thank you, as always, for being part of our program and for being a supporter of it and a caller, and hopefully showing people that you can call this program. You know how bad and how desperate I am for phone calls. I love phone calls.
Yeah, I know.
So I hope you're
Thank you.
hope you're providing an example, my friend.
Thank you. And Kristen, it was nice to meet you and hear from you, young lady.
It's very nice to meet you too.
Thank you, my friend. We'll talk to you next week. You take care of yourself. You stay healthy, okay?
Yeah.
I'm trying. Thank you.
All right. That's Randall. He calls and he's,
He's alive. He's
it's
well.
not hard to call, folks. Randall survives. We don't, you can call me with something that you disagree with too. We're here for conversation. 7:31 Eastern Time, Kennedy Effect. We are still with you live on the 17th of October, 2021. We will be here with you again live next week, where we will again focus on local elections. You might think to yourself, so next week would be the third or fourth show that we've spent on local election. Gee, Jeff, is it really that important? Yes. You just heard Randall. It is that important. The overwhelming majority of the taxes that you pay stay at home. In many municipalities throughout Pennsylvania, New Jersey, the tri-state area, and across the country. It's your local municipalities and school districts that actually push through more of your direct money than does your state, county, or even federal government. These are important elections.
Absolutely.
These are very important elections. Wherever you are in the country, if you have elections, I don't care, the old joke, I don't care if it's for dog catcher. Get out there. Your vote is your voice.
Especially at this time, because the American Rescue Plan gave, what was it, just in Pennsylvania, $5 million to school districts. That's $5 million that your school district can spend well. That's $5 million they can also waste. I'm the daughter of two teachers, and I remember when they went through a building program and there was equipment that was just new. It had been purchased like 2 years ago, and it was trash because somebody in the school board thought that everything had to be uniform and match in the classroom, and somehow that was going to have a huge impact on students' education and learning. And I'm sorry, but that's rather ridiculous. I don't think the fact that the whiteboard didn't match the Apple computer on my teacher's desk had any impact on my education at all. So get out there and vote. Just like you said, put good people in office.
So after we reset the program, and again, the phone line remains open, folks, 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. We will be with you to the top of the hour. You did not come to hang out with me just because I'm cute, because I'm not. And you did not come to hang out with me just because you feel sorry for me, because you do. You are doing something really, really important tomorrow, and I would like you to tell everyone about it. And if you you mailed it to me, but I don't know how to, I can't cut and paste it out of here into here.
That's okay.
But if you give me, oh goodness, I will try. Here's the link if you want to. Yeah, how about?
That's okay.
To watch it. If you give me somehow, I'll put the link somewhere in here to watch. You are doing something important tomorrow. Why don't you tell the folks what you're doing tomorrow?
So tomorrow I'm going to be testifying as a representative from Action Together NEPA and One Pair States and Healthcare for All PA on a matter that's really important to me, which is healthcare consolidation and the closure of community hospitals. Where I grew up in the center part of the state, there was a community hospital that was in our community for over a century. It had actually been started by a group of local leaders and physicians. It was for a long time owned by the community. It was owned by those individuals or by other community members who stepped forward. And then it was sold to a private nonprofit company that ran it. And then in about 2016, 2017, UPMC came in and
Who is that?
University of Pittsburgh Medical Center came in and purchased the hospital, and they told the community and they told elected officials, we're in it for the long haul, we're going to stay, we're going to invest in this hospital. And to be fair, the hospital had fallen on some hard times by that point and had lost some of its services most importantly, maternity care, and completely lost its maternity department. And they made the promise that they were going to put money into the facility, they were going to update it, they were going to bring some of these services back, they were even going to expand and add new services like some cardiac care. And so people were really hopeful. I mean, there were people who were concerned because, to be frank, UPMC does not have a good track record. They do have a history of coming in, buying facilities and kind of hollowing them out, and then taking the tax depreciation and getting out, and shutting them down, taking the loss, taking the tax breaks and getting out. But people were hopeful, and we're really hoping that this was going to be a turnaround for the hospital.
Not much different than a vulture capitalist and buying a company and selling off the pieces. You have these large hospital corporations coming in. Sorry for the sniff, folks. It's allergy time, especially with the wind blowing around here in the valley today. You have these large hospital corporations coming in, buying these smaller rural hospitals.
Yes.
Largely with and backed by tax breaks and tax incentives to keep that hospital open. Those breaks are usually linked to a time limit, a calendar time limit. And as soon as that expires, close it and move away.
Yeah. And to, just to underline the point, UPMC is a nonprofit. They're not supposed to be turning a profit. They have a legal requirement to be putting money back into these facilities, to be focused primarily on care. And they do not live by that, to the point that the state's attorney general, Josh Shapiro, actually opened up an investigation into them, because they would do things like claim, we provide all these millions of dollars in uncompensated care. But what they would do is they would add into that amount the people who couldn't afford to pay their medical bills. And that would get lumped in as uncompensated care. That's not uncompensated care. That's you tried to chase down people who are struggling, who couldn't afford to pay their bill.
That's your collection agency, wasn't too good.
And when you couldn't get any money out of them, you said, oh, then it's uncompensated care. But to get back to what happened at our community hospital in 2019, fall of 2019, a group of us were alerted to the fact that group of local community people were alerted to the fact that UPMC had gone to the city of Sunbury, a third-class city with a lot of seniors and people who are at or below the poverty line. And they asked for massive tax abatements that were going to hollow out funding for the school district and the police department. And so we went to the hearing before the county commissioners, and we were shocked that they were up there and they could not properly identify pieces of property. They couldn't tell the county commissioners what was on that property or how that property was being used, but they were asking for tax abatements for it. One of them, they had to admit, actually had a tenant, an employee of the hospital living in that property, and they were asking for a tax abatement for it. The county commissioners were frustrated. They said no, they denied the tax abatement. That was in the fall. And a couple weeks later, beginning of December, they announced they're shutting the hospital down. And there was a lot of outcry.
You didn't give us what we wanted, so we're taking our ball and going home.
We're taking our ball and going home. And they did not.
Because that proves to you then that the job is profit, not care.
Yeah. Well, they never lived up to their promises either. They didn't even put up a permanent sign for the ER. They put up a tarp on the side of the building that you couldn't even see at night. And so they shut the hospital down. They unemployed 135 people. They took away 65 hospital beds from the community. They took away the ability of veterans to access certain VA benefits there, for people on Medicaid to access mental health care and methadone treatments, just methadone treatments in general. It was one of the few places you could go. And so the hearing tomorrow in Strasbourg is on that very subject, because this is something that's increasingly happening across the state. It's happened to Lancaster. It's famously happened to Braddock, and Lieutenant Governor Fetterman was a very vocal advocate on that subject. And it's now happening to Tyler Memorial in Wyoming County. where they're shutting down the hospital. CHS is shutting it down, and they're saying they might leave an emergency room there or some type of urgent care facility. But if that facility closes, all of Wyoming County and 27,000 people will not have a hospital in their entire county.
And the closest one would be,
About 45 minutes to an hour away.
could you imagine having a heart attack or a stroke or going into labor or even something compared to those other things, folks? I suffer from kidney stones. Having a kidney stone lodged for 45 minutes while you drive, sometimes drive yourself, because I've done that too,
Yeah.
to a hospital to get care. 45 minutes. If you're having a stroke, 45 minutes is life and death. It's brain damage or none. A heart attack, 45 minutes is permanent heart damage
Or death.
or death.
I use heart attack a lot because my father in 2012 had a massive heart attack. He had a complete blockage in the LVN. It's the heart attack that's nicknamed the Widowmaker. And he was lucky enough that he was in the hospital when he had chest pains. One of my childhood friends, his father had the same heart attack. His parents lived the same distance that my parents lived from the hospital, but his dad was at home. And his dad never made it to the hospital. And being 20 to 25 minutes away from the hospital in this day and age in rural Pennsylvania is not a huge distance, but it was enough that he didn't survive that heart attack. And the adage that the cardiologist said to us when we stood in the hospital hallway that night, asking about how our dad was doing, is that time equals muscle. For every minute that you are not at the hospital and they are not able to stabilize you, that is more muscle that dies, that can't heal, that can't be repaired. Allowing consolidations like this is us as a society saying we're okay with the idea that there are going to be people, there are going to be neighbors in our community who are not going to live, who are not going to make it to the hospital, and they're not going to live.
And let's get to the brass tacks of why they're not going to live. Because they're not profitable. So many of our neighbors are self-identified Republican friends, brothers, sisters, neighbors, fellow members of our community who were apoplectic during the negotiations authoring the building of the Affordable Care Act, that it was going to be rationing care. 4 states in our union right now are rationing care because they are overwhelmed with COVID patients. These are red states full of folks who won't get vaccinated. 97% of all the COVID deaths, the last that I had heard. Very possible that this stat has changed. The last that I heard it was 97% of all COVID deaths are non-vaccinated folks, people who refused to get vaccinated. When you close a rural hospital and force the people that live there to drive a half hour, 45 minutes, an hour and a half to get to the closest trauma center, care center, emergency room, emergency maternity ward, that is rationing care, but not for any legislative reason, only for profit, because you're not profitable. What UPMC is telling the residents of Wyoming County is we don't care about you. You're not profitable enough. If you have a heart attack, too bad. Better drive fast. If you break a bone, suffer till you get here. We hope you don't bleed out. Because you're not profitable. That's the bottom line. There's no other way to look at it. UPMC, a supposed nonprofit corporation, has decided that that hospital is not profitable enough. Not that they can't afford to run it, because UPMC, last I heard,
Well,
posted a
CH
profit of 1.2 billion the last I
Yes.
saw. So they have the money.
Mhm.
They're choosing not to spend it.
And just to clarify, CHS is the one that owns Tyler, but CHS is like a carbon copy of UPMC and to
Well, you
your
know what? You
point
and I had
about-
this discussion. If you really put your brain to it, how many major hospital corporations can you name in the entirety of Pennsylvania? I don't think we even got to 10.
No.
Right off the top of my head, I can do 5. I
it's
can
really
do
consolidated.
Lehigh Valley Health Network, which I go to, St. Luke's, Geisinger, UPMC,
Hershey, Penn State,
Hershey, Penn State is 6, and Temple is 7. And
and
Temple's not that big, by the way.
Thomas Jefferson. I mean, that's the
Mainline.
ironic thing.
Mainline Health. I mean, what are we at 8?
Mhm.
And we're out of ideas.
Yeah.
There's 12 million people in PA. 12 million, is it 12.8 million?
Yeah.
And 7 hospital systems.
Well,
And
that-
now entire counties. Now look, I've never been to Wyoming County. Let me just be blunt. I've never been there. I suspect I could drive through enormous portions of it and never see a soul. But does that mean that the souls that live there don't deserve care? And when I talk about every week on this program, folks, you self-identified Republicans, and you continue to vote against your own self-interests, this is the manifestation of the voting patterns that you have taken part in since Reagan. Do you not deserve care? Do you not deserve a hospital? Why do you think you don't? And why do you somehow think that the effort of my party to expand healthcare is somehow responsible for taking your hospital from you?
I will say this: the criticism.
You're always the voice of reason. You're going to defend it.
No, I was going to say the criticism of the ACA that it accelerated consolidations is somewhat accurate, but at the same time, we were on that trajectory to begin with, because I do think at a certain point, when you look at hospital consolidations and when you look at the research, I think these hospital systems realized it was to their benefit to become both the provider of care and the financer of care. And that if they consolidated both of those, they could then control not only where you could access care through the insurance, but they could control facility placement. And, look at where we are. We're in Hellertown, right away from, 20 minutes away from the 3rd largest city in the state.
Mhm.
We have 2 hospital systems. That's it.
Right. 2 of the biggest hospital
2.
systems in the Commonwealth, and we could get to one of their flagship hospitals, both within 15 minutes.
Which,
Lehigh Valley Health in Cedar Crest,
yeah.
the big hospital campus. I mean, it's a proper hospital campus.
And on the
And St. Luke's
surface-
Anderson, we could be there in 15 minutes.
On the surface, that looks fantastic, but when you actually sit back and you think about it, if you're somebody who believes in a free market, how in the heck is that a free market? You've got 2 options. They've only got 1 competitor.
And
How
and
much
it's not like
pressure downward on the cost of a CT scan does that bring? Almost none.
and it's not like almost anything else in an economy.
Mhm.
It's not like a restaurant. There might be 20 restaurants in Bethlehem, but no one does this particular niche of food. So
No.
I'll open that restaurant and fill that niche. The students on campus don't have a really good place to do laundry. I'll open the really nice laundromat, safe, clean. Hell, I'll even serve food in it. There's a neat niche. I'll fill that. You can't go to Lehigh Valley Health or St. Luke's and say, the care here sucks. I'm going to open my own hospital. You're talking hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars.
Yeah.
You can't there is no competition in the system.
No, you just hit on in the way that you constructed that point is perfect, because if I go to a restaurant and I have a terrible meal, I walk out and I go, well, I'm never coming back here ever
Right.
again.
If you go to Lehigh Valley Health and they treat you like crap, and by the way, I've always been treated like gold at Lehigh Valley Health. They've always taken very good care of me. My father, before he passed away, was at St. Luke's. They took very good care of him. This is not about the care
No,
workers.
no.
It's not about
Yeah.
the care in. This is about administration. This is about something that should be public right, something that should be treated more along the lines of a utility, like your water, your electric, which a lot of that has been privatized too. It's the commons. It's part of the commons. It's schools, it's libraries, it's airports, it's roads, it's care. These should not be businesses, and they are. And they're profitable in the same way Patricia mentioned in the chat about the profitability of them. They're profitable in the way that cyber charters are profitable. Okay, so UPMC legally is not for profit, but we know they reported that they're ahead on money by billions.
Oh,
That's profit. And the administrators, the owners, the stockholders are taking that money.
and they're
They're
opening
sticking in their pockets.
for-profit institutions abroad in other countries. In countries like Italy, they're opening for-profit hospitals abroad and making a lot of money, but to get back to the point that you were making too, if you also flip it on the flip side, like I think I've talked about this before, I have health problems of my own, and my one particular health problem, I need a specialist with a particular type of training. So there might be a hospital out there that I absolutely love, and I want to go to hospital X. There might not be a physician at that hospital that specializes in my disorder. So they're immediately off the menu. It doesn't have the same pressures. You can't apply to healthcare the same pressures that you apply to other choices that we make in a capitalistic system. They're just not there.
Let's remember this too. I might be going off on a bit of an angle, but let's just remind ourselves of this as well. At the beginning of this pandemic, the biggest reason, if not the reason, part of the reason was to stop the spread, the easy spread of it. It was spreading very easily. One of the biggest reasons that we had all of the shutdown, stay-at-home guidelines that came from the Trump regime, by the way, let me just remind you of that, was to spare hospitals because they couldn't take the patients. Because our hospitals are now being run with this just-in-time manufacturing type ideal. Empty beds are not profitable beds. So therefore, if your hospital is just big enough that you have 1,000 beds in your hospital and you never want more than 5% of them to be empty, well, then when a pandemic comes, you can't handle the people coming to your door. You have no space for them. In a national healthcare style system, a UK style system, there's no profit. The government owns everything. The workers are employees of the NHS. You could have, if you wanted to do so, you could have entire hospital buildings just sitting there empty, waiting for the next pandemic. The UK had warehouses full of ventilators, just sitting there waiting to be used, because there's no profit motive. None. We had shut down to protect hospitals, to protect for-profit hospitals. Stay home and don't get sick. Lose everything. Lose your companies, lose your businesses, lose your jobs, lose your savings. Just so these big hospital corporations could be protected because they didn't have beds for you, because it's not profitable.
But I think the sad thing, at least from what I saw in our community, is that the hospitals who got hit the hardest were the small community hospitals. It actually, in a way,
But
accelerated
it exposed
this.
the fact that they don't have the bases to draw off of. These local
Well, they
who have
didn't-
not already been absorbed by these big corporations, they can't
they
can't prepare for a pandemic either.
I meant
You know,
the
the
small-
financial base to do it.
because they don't have the buying power. The biggest problem is not just the space, but also the supply chain. The UK had legal limits, and not just because of the NHS, but a lot of European countries as well have legal limits for how much backup supply like for things like ventilators that they were supposed to have on hand. We don't necessarily have the same regulations. So it was the question of hospital bed space and making sure that we didn't break the supply chain. You know,
because it's a just-in-time
Yeah.
supply chain, because that's the most profitable. It all comes down to profits at the end of the day. Patricia mentions, and she makes a very good point, because we're living with it here in the Lehigh Valley as well. Check UPMC West Shore and Penn State West Shore. Newest hospitals in Cumberland County within a mile of each other. Meanwhile, in Perry County, 0 hospitals. We have experienced that here. Interstate 78 and Cedar Crest Boulevard, which is also PA 29, the massive Lehigh Valley Health Network campus. PA 78 and 33, the St. Luke's, the big and still growing, by the way, St. Luke's Anderson campus.
Yeah.
10 minutes up 33 in Hecktown Road, another Lehigh Valley Health Hospital. And let's not forget the old St. Luke's Hospital. And I say old because it's an older building. It literally goes back to the World War II, before World War II. I think it goes back to the 1920s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
The St. Luke's on South in Fountain Hill. 4 fully developed, fully staffed, emergency, natal, all of it, cancer care, all of it, soup to nuts, within half hour. Would you say half hour maybe of each other? Maybe 40 minutes at the most, if you figure from Cedar Crest up to Hecktown Road, but for all intent and purpose, about a half hour. 4 major fully functional hospital campuses in a half hour.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, other counties in our Commonwealth go completely without hospital care. And folks, I'm telling you, it all comes down to profit. It is all about profit.
My hometown county does not have a hospital in it.
This is why Alan Grayson stood on the floor of the U.S. House during the debate for the ACA and talked about the Republican healthcare plan. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to YouTube and find it. It is borderline comical, but he's right. It's borderline comical because you think he's being sarcastic. And he kind of is being sarcastic, but he's also telling you the truth. During the debate for the ACA, he stood on the House floor and had a bunch of cards with him to make the display. You know how they flip the big poster boards, whatever. He was going through some of the points of the ACA, and he says, let's look into the Republican healthcare plan. And he flipped the card, and the next card just said, die quickly. Because if you're not profitable, then just die, and we'll move next man up. We'll get the next one. Quit your job, no problem. Plug somebody else in like a piece of machinery, no problem. We'll find the next one. Mr. Grayson, a lot of people laughed at him like he was just being ridiculous, except that he was right. That is the plan. Die and get out of the way. You're not profitable. You're costing people money. Die and get out of the way. We'll find somebody else.
And to be fair, there are issues with keeping, smaller facilities open. Like I know at home, close to where my parents live, there was a pediatrics office that closed. It was in an area where a lot of the people tend to be older and don't have little kids, but there are some families with little kids. So none of those families are going to have to drive further. They just didn't have enough people coming into the office for visits to keep that office open. There are going to be challenges in negotiating this, but there are bad actors like UPMC and CHS in the mix who are not closing facilities because they gave it the good college try and they couldn't keep that facility open. No, this is a business decision about shifting assets and resources to a more centralized network where they can charge you more for treatment at that facility.
And logistically, it's more convenient. We won't go to the patients. We'll make the patients come to us.
I think it's about
there's all sorts of different reasons for it, but it all, at the end of the day, it all boils down to profit.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think at the end of the end of the day, the biggest thing is that they can charge you more money
Mhm.
because you're going to a more swanky, expensive facility.
Right. I have told you the story before. I've told people this story on the air while visiting one of my doctors. This is early on in the pandemic. I was already out of, my company had already shut down, but I still had some health coverage. Our owner was kind enough to cover our health benefits for 3 months after we closed. So I went to see one of my doctors and she said, I've been wearing this mask for 6 weeks. Do you know what they're doing over at the main hospital? And I said, no, I have no idea. She goes, they're putting brand new 4K TVs in all the rooms. Do you know who runs the hospital? I said, no, ma'am, I don't. She said, a hotel executive. I hired him away from a hotel chain. It's not a doctor, doesn't have any degree in health, no education in health. He's a hotel manager. So I'm wearing this paper mask for 6 weeks, but everybody over there is getting a brand new TV. And I just, yep. And she said to me that this happens nowhere else. She's Turkish. This happens nowhere else on earth. This would never happen in Turkey. It would never happen in Europe. And it would never happen in Asia. You are correct.
And
Spot
it's,
on.
Yeah. And
All
it's
right,
not
where do
just
people
hospitals.
where
It's
do people
nursing
watch
homes.
this tomorrow?
So you can.
It is nursing. You're right. I'm sorry. You're
Yeah.
right. It is nursing homes. I shouldn't have stopped that, but you're
Yeah.
right. It is nursing. And I see that every day in my 40-hour
Yeah.
a week job. I see it every day. But you're right. It is nursing homes as well. And what is the key? Who is the largest funder or payer of fees at nursing homes?
Medicare.
Medicare. Keep your damn government hands off my Medicare. But oh yeah, pay for my grandfather to be in a facility.
To answer the question you were leading into, I'm sorry, I jumped in.
So
there
how do
around
folks
this.
watch this? I'm reading the email that you sent me. I do not want to read it on the
No, no,
air,
no.
but it appears that there may or may not be a live stream tomorrow.
Yes.
Will
they're
you
gonna-
be able to go to the group, go to that other side of information, share a stream if you find one
I will absolutely
for
do my
folks so
best
that
to
they
do
can
that.
watch, because it might be how I have to watch too. I'm going to
Sure.
be at work, but at my regular 40-hour job.
Right.
And I can't go with you, and that sucks. I would go with you if I could. If you find a stream, we will.
Yes.
Currently, as it stands, there's going to be no live stream of this.
Well,
of
they're hoping they're going to try to live stream this from Representative Maureen Madden's
the
Facebook
page.
She is the chairwoman of the policy committee, the House Democratic Policy Committee. So the hearing will be at the library in Stroudsburg. It
I
is.
believe Stroudsburg is in her district, or Neighbor is her district. It's very, very close.
I believe it is in her district because I believe she has most of Monroe County.
She is the western part of Monroe. I don't know if she
Yeah.
gets into Stroudsburg, but either way, it's either in or borders.
darn close. Yeah.
real close.
So there will also be a link. I put that link in the Facebook chat that if you go to that
You did?
link, you can watch it.
You did?
I did. I
Oh.
stuck that link in the
Well,
chat.
you did sneak it because I didn't see it.
And there will
We have a
be-
comment from someone named Kristen. Put a link in here. Did you see it? Okay. I'm just saying.
There will also be a video recording, which we can put out later too, as well if the live stream doesn't happen. But yes, so there will also be more people testifying than me and more people who are probably way more qualified to testify than me. And I was just going to go back to that if I can get there, because I had it open and I think I closed it. Sorry, my email closed out. So the other people who will be testifying tomorrow is John Nespoli. He's the president of St. Luke's Hospital Lehighton. Maggie Murphy, she's the executive director of NAMI Lehigh Valley. Margot Pashanik, who is the chief officer of Delta Medics. And Delta Medics is really interesting because Delta Medics has a facility where one of these for-profit entities came in and tried to buy it, and they actually released a letter Friday or over this weekend, basically lambasting that organization and saying, no, we're not going to sell to you because you're terrible, and this is exactly why you're terrible. It's a fascinating read. Maggie Lopez Vasquez, who's the president of SEIU Pocono chapter. She's at Lehigh Valley Hospital. She's a healthcare worker. and her testimony is going to be, I think, really emotional. She talks about working at Lehigh Valley Pocono during the pandemic and actually fielding phone calls from family members. People were calling who were desperate to know how their loved one's doing. Am I going to lose my loved one? Am I going to be able to talk to my loved one if, before you put them on a ventilator? It was really hard to hear. I can't imagine what it was like to live through that.
So we are 8:06. We will wrap up here in the next few minutes. Here is the plan for next week, the 24th. I have kind of sort of have a couple of guests lined up. They are not written in stone, confirmed, but I do believe I know who's going to be here. Marianne Velez is expected here. She's running for Luzerne County Council. I'm expecting an old friend of the show here who is also running for office. Connor O'Hanlon should be here next week. He is running for the mighty office of tax collector for Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Again, we want to, and that's who I have so far. There might be more than that. Local candidates, if you are out there anywhere in the country, please, you are welcome to join us here and be part of the program next week. Dial in, jump in, even if it's for 5 or 10 minutes. You are welcome. The program is open to you next week. That's the 24th. I am not planning to do a program on Halloween night. I think we're just going to sit outside and see if we get trick-or-treaters. And I kind of hope not, because I'm going to buy candy I like. And then I will have lots of it. That's always the plan. But
Do we need to buy you your own candy?
No, because then it's more mentally, you can justify it more when I'm just eating the leftovers. I don't want it to go to waste. I'm just eating what's left over. Come on, you know how that old game goes. Unless I decide to dress up and go trick-or-treating myself, and why not?
That could be fun.
But anyway, we're expecting, traditionally here in my development, we don't have a huge amount of trick-or-treating, but I think it would be fun, especially with you living here now. I think it would be fun to sit out and maybe hand out some candy. And like I said, if I buy good candy that I like, if there's leftovers, what a tragedy that would be, wouldn't it? It might be a tragedy for my teeth, and it would definitely be a tragedy for my waistline, which is ever expanding anyway. But it would be pretty fun. So I think that's the plan for now, folks, is that we will be with you next week. We will be live here next week. That's October 24th. Again, if you have missed any of tonight's program, or if you miss any live Kennedy Effect, you can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/thatothersideofinformation. I'm asking you again before we leave. We have 900 members now in our group, That Other Side of Information. If you are a member of That Other Side of Information, if you are a listener of the program, if you're a viewer of the program, and if you're not yet a member of the group, please come join us. If you are a member of the group, then I ask you to go through your friends list and pick just 5 people and invite them to come to our group. If you want to invite 10, 20, or 50, or 100, you're welcome to do that too. But I'm just going to ask you for 5. We really could use to get the group over 1,000. Everything in Facebook land changes when you get over 1,000. It will mean a great deal for our program. It will mean a great deal for our group. Our group page never goes away. It's there 24/7. I update it every single day. We post articles from pretty much 4 news sources: the CBC, which is the Canadian Broadcasting Company; Lehigh Valley Live, because after all, I live here; the BBC, and the Guardian. We will occasionally take things from NBC or CBS, sometimes even Fox, or the New York Times, the Post, the Nation, we take things from just about anywhere if I think they're good to put on the page. Those first four sources are pretty much the most that we post from. I would also say that even if you are not very much of a political person, I think you will enjoy our group page. I also post long form articles there on philosophy, on societal studies, on health studies. I've posted articles this past week, a lot on environment, some on ancient bones that were found in a cave and what they tell us about our own development as human beings. A couple of sad stories this week about the extinction of quite a number of species that we now consider to be completely extinct, and overwhelmingly, if not exclusively, because of us humans, the top of the food chain, because we've destroyed their habitats and we've hunted them to death. A lot of environmental articles on education, articles on religion, pretty much anything that I think is kind of interesting or that I think you might find interesting, you will find at our group page. It never closes. It's there 24/7. I even actually posted some astronomy articles this week. It just reminded myself. I posted some astronomy articles, a new NASA probe that was just launched to go to a solitary, interesting group of asteroids that are not part of the asteroid belt, but they are also not moons of Jupiter, but yet somehow caught in this very interesting orbit of Jupiter. They are not considered moons. They are a mini asteroid grouping, not even a belt, because they don't form a complete circle around the planet or around the Jovian system. They simply travel kind of in between Mars and Jupiter. They're not part of the asteroid belt. They kind of have a very interesting orbit, but they are largely under the control of Jupiter. So we've launched a probe. NASA launched a probe to go check out these asteroids and find out why they're in the orbit that they're in, find out if they're made of different things than the asteroid belt is, and if they're made of different things, is that why their orbit is different? But that's a very interesting thing. A couple of interesting things we posted this week, photo comparison articles of what certain places in our country are going to look like after, if all the sea ice was to melt, how the big pier, Santa Monica Pier in California disappears, what happens to DC. There's some interesting articles. I think you'll like our group page. I ask you to invite people to our group page. We really, really, really want to get over 1,000 or over 1,000 members. It changes everything within Facebook world and algorithm. So that is basically our program for this week. We thank you all for being here. We thank our guests, Gina, Heather, and Jay. We wish them the best of luck in their elections, and we wish them good health and safe campaigning. That's not a small thing to wish for people this particular cycle. But we hope they stay safe. And of course, the star of the show, Lucy, who's, I think she's running for the junior city council in Scranton, or for union rep. I'm not sure, but she's running for something. And whatever she does, she's got my vote. I can tell you that. I also want to tell you before we leave, I spent a lot of time last week talking about Sis, my somewhere between 18 and 20-year-old cat. Sis was in a real bad way last week. I thought there was a very tangible possibility that when I signed off from you last week and went downstairs, that she might not be with us anymore. She was in a very, very bad state. We have found out that she's diabetic. She also has a touch of irritable bowel syndrome, so I can tell you that's not pleasant all the time. She also has a hyperthyroid condition. It's a lot of competing health issues where one kind of exacerbates the other. The treatment for one is the direct opposite of what you would do for the other, but we're managing to balance it out. So Sis started insulin. Yes, I'm literally injecting insulin into a cat. She started it Monday night. And as God is my witness, by Tuesday evening, really Tuesday morning, but really solidly by maybe Wednesday evening, Thursday morning, she's more or less back to good old sis, I'd say. Would you agree with that generally? And Mike is still
Yeah.
on, even though you're not.
I mean, she has to. She has.
She has
to gain
moments where
weight.
she's a little tired.
Yeah.
She definitely needs to gain weight, but generally speaking, it's
She's-
cranky old sis.
What scared me last week was you would pick her up and she'd almost slump in your arms. She was that weak.
Well, the insulin has worked. It's been a miracle. It's been an absolute miracle. Now, here's the deal. I harbor no illusions. Sis is not going to live for another 50 years. I get it. She's not even going to live for another 5. I'd be stunned if she lived another 1 year. But she wanted to live. And she was eating and drinking. And my goodness, when I say drinking, oh my God. But she was eating and drinking. And she was interested in she was still interested in what was going on around her. And so I had to help her. These wonderful souls, they're alive, they're sentient, they have feelings and hopes and dreams, they love, they dislike. She happens to dislike her brother cat. But they're sentient beings.
Sometimes.
And she deserved the opportunity that if she was going to go out, she needed to go out on her own terms. And clearly she's not ready. And it's nothing short of a miracle. Now, look, 2 weeks, we might be right back where we started. In another month, I might have to make a decision for her and in her best interests. But the rebound that she made from last week and the amount of time that I spent on it, I feel like I should at least tell you what's been going on. And you may have even heard her in the pre-show. She was having a right go downstairs. I don't know what she was on about, but she was on about something. And just as I'm sharing the program, I can hear her screaming. So she was having a go about something. She's still a little too weak to come up the steps.
Yeah.
So she's not in here tonight. If she was, I'd pick her up and you could have a look at her. But she's not come up. I don't think she came up the steps.
No, she's been in her
She's
bed.
still a little too tired to do the steps. And a little too weak to do the steps. But I just figured I spent so much time on it last week that the least I could do is give you a bit of an update. And even if you don't give a toss about my particular cat, I beg you all, in this world of division and mask or no mask and abortion rights, and you're a Democrat, so you might as well be dead. And the way that this country is really quite properly on the edge of a proper division, there are a few things that we can agree on, or a few things that I hope that we can appeal to our better nature, appeal to our better angels, and say that when we have a furry family member, we'll take care of them. And I guess my biggest message to you last week, and I guess one that I'm trying to reinforce, is that these are family members. They are. They're not toys. They're not throwaway. When they break, you don't toss them in the garbage and get another one. They love unconditionally. Now, look, sis doesn't always. She's got a hell of a personality. She's been mad at me more times than I can count. But at the end of the day, no matter how upset she might be because I don't feed enough, or I don't feed what she wanted, or I'm not home because I had to go to work, she's right back on my lap and purring and sleeping, and she wants to be where I am. I know in some strange way, sis loves me. She might not always like me, but I know she loves me. These are family. Simply because they have fur and 4 legs, and if they're cats, they have pointy ears, and if they're dogs, they slobber and whatever else. Even if you have souls that I don't particularly consider to be, domesticated, lizards or snakes or birds or whatever, it's a responsibility. It's the same kind of responsibility that you would take to your children. They need medical attention. They need to be fed. They need personal attention. They need affection. They need, I talk to my cats. I hug them. I hope that, I want them to lay on top of my lap. I feed them. I care about what I feed them. My goodness, I'm injecting insulin into my cat to keep her alive, to make her feel better. These are not toys. They are not property. They are not disposable. These are living creatures. And I hope that if you have taken one into your home during this pandemic, that you love who you added to your family the way I love them. And I hope you'll take care of them. And if you're considering adopting, not buying, please never, 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 never buy. If you're considering adopting and adding to your family, there's a responsibility that comes with it. They're not always cheap. And sometimes they puke on the rug.
And it's not short term.
No,
It's
she's
not
been with me for,
short-term.
I think she's been with me for at least 18, could be as many as 20 years. I keep doing the math and I kind of lose the timeline occasionally, but you don't have them for a week or 2 weeks or a month. They're not a plant even. It grows in the spring, it blooms in the summer and dies in the fall. It's not how it works. It's not. They shed, they poop and they pee and they shed and they puke, and you have to feed them.
Not as
and it-
bad as the collie that was here this
Well,
weekend.
and at the end of the day, they love you. They are family. I beg you, if you're going to add to your family, and there's no greater addition that you can make to a family than a furry family member, specifically for that reason, because they do love unconditionally. But they come with responsibility. They come with care. They're not property. They're not. They might be in the eyes of the law, but they're not property. They need you. But guess what? You need them too. You will find that they give you every bit and more that you give them. So I just wanted to let you know that Sis seems to be okay. We'll check in again next week. We'll see how she's doing. We do take it a little bit day by day here, although that sense of imminency has waned a tiny bit. So it just doesn't look so desperate right now, but I wanted to let you know that. So again, 8:23 Eastern time. The phone is open if you want to jump in really, really quick, but we're literally talking about a couple minutes. Let me just review again. YouTube.com if you missed any of tonight's show. We are on Instagram as well. And I'm looking at my cheat sheet. You can always tweet me at that Kennedy Talk. You can always tweet me. Actually had some tweets that were not at me, but I responded to them during the program, getting some likes. That's fine. Awesome. We love to see that. You can email me anytime, whether we're on the air or not. You can email us thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. The Instagram to be a subscriber to the program. It is, yes, it's financial. Okay, it's financial. Every dime that has ever been given to me for this program and the Patreon subscribers that we have, every dime of it has been turned back into the program. I do not put it in my pocket. I am not making money on this program, I assure you. I absolutely guarantee it. Every time we get a Patreon subscription or donation or even cash money for gifts, it goes back into the program. I do not put it in my pocket. I guarantee you we are not living large here off this program. Absolutely guaranteed. And TikTok, of course, you can go to TikTok. I will do announcements there and show on. And every time this part of the program comes, I say I'm going to do rants on TikTok. I never do it, but I really should. But, give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a subscribe, a like, a follow, or whatever is appropriate on whatever platform. We just ask you to be part of the family. We want you to be part of the family. We want you to be here with us every week. Call the program, email me, tweet me, follow me, subscribe, whatever it might be. We just want you to be part of the program, because after all, we could not be here if you were not there. That pretty much does it for us for this week. We will see you next week, where we finish our focus on the 2021 local municipal county election cycle. We will not be with you for Halloween. and then we will return on November 7th. That's our next upcoming few weeks. We will be with you next week. Go trick or treat for Halloween and enjoy it. Do it safely. And then we'll see you on November 7th. That's us for the next 3 weeks, and that's us for tonight. Please have conversations, check in, and take care of your neighbors. We are a community. We are an American society and part of the global population. Be kind to yourselves. Take care of yourselves. Stay healthy and be good to yourselves and each other. For April Riddick, the woman who started this program, for DJ Lex and DJ Earl at hot101.net, for all Marquise and Whitney and everyone at TCP, for George and Lynn. George has been absent from us for a little while, but he is fine. I assure you. He did have a little health issue, and you know, they spend a lot of time taking care of elderly family, but George is fine. Lynn is fine. We will welcome them back when they are able to join us. For Kristen, for our guests, I am Jeff Kennedy. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and we will see you next week. Good night.